to carry it home on an old billy cart I built when I was about 11.
Chris,
And,
it wouldn't be Constant Street.
Constant Street, that's it. Constant Street, Hawthorne. Very steep. It was a good place for billy. Very, very good place for billy carts. There was, in those days, at Iver's place you could pick it easily because he had a 20-metre quad, 15 and 20-metre quad in the front of his house, and of course in those days...
I met Iver and myself for the first time.
Yeah.
Yes, I remember that antenna.
And he was a inveterate 80-metre operator as well. Very enthusiastic about sideband very early on. And anyway, the long and the short of it was that I knew Iver and Ilse, his wife, very well, and re-recorded the majority of his discs, have them here. His recording on disc started in October 1934 at about the time of the Melbourne centenary, and he switched to tape, I think, sometime in the early 1950s, so covers quite a range. But a lot of the early recordings that Iver cut were of 200-metre phone operation on the broadcast band on Sunday mornings. Records being played, not unlike certain activities on 160 metres today.
Yeah, and apparently, you know, people would say, they'd meet you in the street and say, "You're an amateur, are you?" Ooh. And, yeah, of course, they were using that... the Bright Sparks program, weren't they, some of those discs or recordings?
Yes, I had some, when Stephen Rapley produced those in 1991, I did a bit of work on that program, and he gained access to those, I think, through the work that I did at the, recopying them for the Performing Arts Museum, as it was then, Victorian Arts Centre.
Yeah, very interesting man, and yeah, he had that voice too, that old style announcer's voice as well.
He had what you might call a pre-war accent. There was definitely a different way of pronouncing stuff in the generation born at the start of the 20th century. You can pick it almost immediately when you hear pre-war recordings of Australian broadcasts. They're very distinctive.
I think had a very interesting accent. It sounded like they had a peg on their nose prior to the war. And you would see... I've seen... film videos of announcers at work at the ABC, and they all had this very, very tight, thin, sort of British accent with a peg over their nose, which is the best way to describe it. And you're expecting to see someone about 70 or 80 years old, and then you see some young bloke about 16 that's doing this.
The classic was...
Well, didn't they do special electrocution courses to sound like that? They did.
Electrocution courses.
The situation is that
we'll have a listen out on our channels after this this little break. I'll tune in and see if anyone's there at this stage. But first of all, we'll go across to our sponsored
printed
material.
and published by Sungrevia Pfy. Limited, of Mendel more in you, which every element more in you, Royab cry. Australia's National Electronics Journal KIO, television and Hubble ABC certified circulation in excess of 44,000 volume 26. Number the 9th of December. 1964 Electronic Memory. You think it significant that last month's editorial Gildarklanger has failed, thus far, to produce even one letter of objection? Comment has been made, but all of it reflects agreement on the part of those who understand the problem and interest by those who have not had occasion, before this, to give it much thought. In fact, the problem referred to is by no means peculiar to medical men, because workers in every major field are finding it well nigh impossible to keep up with all the developments which might concern them. It is difficult enough for them to read their regular journals, let alone bridge the gap into other languages and other sciences. The unfortunate result is that people are being treated improperly or inadequately, because medical men cannot assimilate all the knowledge that is available to them, that laboratory workers are spending needless time and energy trying to find out things that are the subject of papers and reports already published, that factories are turning out products which do not reflect the advantages of available research information. In the light of this, I was most interested to read reports from England of an electronic encyclopedia proposed by a group of British scientists. Their plan envisages a central memory unit into which will be fed up-to-date information on particular subjects, in the form of abstracts from scientific articles, laboratory reports and such like. Access would be by telephone circuits, and a properly expressed inquiry would produce the latest references covering individual specialized subjects. Appropriately enough, the first memory will be devoted to electronics, but the second is suggested for the science of medicine, to give doctors and research workers direct access to the latest medical findings throughout the world. If justification was needed for last month's editorial, the article above mentioned could not have come at a more opportune time. Changing the subject rather abruptly, our dateline once again reads December. This has been a big year for radio, television and hobbies, with excellent support from advertisers and readers alike. We're looking forward to even bigger things in 1965. In the meantime, we would like to extend, to readers, advertisers and contributors, the compliments of the sea sun from the editorial staff of radio, television and hobbies. In this issue, Electronics and Astronomy 4 Telescope in Space 1 Designing a Moon Mobile 9 Punched Tape and Machine Control Review, Semiconductor Lasers Review, Instant Voltage __ Scientific and Industrial News Playmaster Bookshelf Loudspeaker Transistor Tape Preamp. The Serviceman Who Tells 12171921283744 The Answer Man 49 Simple Mode, Control System 52 The 1964 Television Receiver 60 Basic Radio Course 71 A Reader Built at 83 Classical Reviews 85 Documentary Records 89 Variety 493 Trade Reviews and Releases 105 Amateur Band News, Notes 109 Listening Around the World 117 Answers to Correspondence 121 Book Reviews 125 Classified Advertisements 127 Index to Advertisers 128 Editor, Neville Williams MIREE, OSF. VK215, Technical Editor, Phone ILIP Watson, VK2ZPW, AMIREE, OS. Technical Staff, Jameson Rowe B.SC, Tech. Grad. IREE, OS. Keith Jeffcoat, VK2BK, Keith Woodward, VK2ZAU, John Davidson, VK2ZJE, Robert Flynn Advertising, Selwyn Sayers, Manager Bill Summons, Representative Sydney Gill O'Neill, Representative Melb. Circular.
Right. We'll listen out now. Our listen channels now. I'll open them up. I'm coming on there. Okay. We'll listen on. We'll put them all open. UHF, VHF 1, VHF 2. Okay. We're listening on 145.3 megahertz, 145.000 megahertz, and 437.8 megahertz. If anyone's around.
Yes.
Oh, it's Mr. Frank.
Mr. 145 megahertz.
Okay.
Mr. 145.
Okay, just hang on.
Yes.
I'll just set this up. And now what do? I have to do that. And I have to... it's a very, very quick response tonight.
Yes, well, it's early. It's nice and early.
Yeah, well, maybe we might do more earlies. Just if I want to record this, that goes there, doesn't it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No, it doesn't. 1, 2. Oh, it's on that one. 1, 2, 3. Okay. So I'll put that there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and Mr. Frank comes up on. That's there. You'd come up on. On there. There we are. So if you'd like to say something.
Yes, hello.
Oh, it's not coming through. Why? It's not. Oh, because it's the wrong one. This must be this one here. Go ahead.
Hello.
Oh, no. Right, okay. Testing 1, 2, 3. Yes, okay.
A little bit noisy.
Oh, there's always some sort of noise there.
Do you want more signal?
Only if it's not going to pop your emitters or something.
Yeah, well, let me just see. That's 1 watt.
1 watt, that's pretty low.
Yeah, we'll go up.
10 should be okay.
Yeah, that'll be okay.
Yeah.
I've actually got the speaker on top of the transceiver, which is not a good idea.
Right, yes.
Really, but it's very convenient. Not covering the vent holes, but it's...
That's the main thing.
It still shouldn't be there, really.
Yeah, well, people do put things over the vent holes, which isn't a good idea.
Very bad idea.
Hang on, how do I set this up?
It seems quite noisy.
Yeah, there's some sort of noise there. Now...
Yeah, it's noisy. Oh,
yeah.
I can stop it by 50 watts, but...
Well, you probably don't. Yeah, it might be a bit hard.
It's very noisy on nothing. It's usually not as noisy as that.
Yeah, I don't know why that would
just
be.
check that I'm on frequency.
I think you are. It's not distorted or anything.
No, I'm on frequency.
I'll check the equalisation here. Record. There we are. Right, and that's going through. 1, 2. Yeah. Hello, test.
Yeah, that's not too... Oh, that's better.
That's better. There seems to be a heterodyne. You could go down. It could be a spugle or something.
Want me to move?
Do you want to go? You can only go up at 145, can't you?
Yeah, I could go a bit higher.
Well, maybe just go to what 140. Go 25k down.
144.975.
Yeah, I'll just tune my thing to that. Stand on by.
Hang on.
VK3ASE crossband from 160 80 and 2 meters.
Hello? Yes. Still noisy.
Okay.
I think that's worse.
There was You're full strength here. I'll put some treble cut on the missions.
Yeah.
It's that one there. Hang on. What am I doing here? It's that one. That one there. Right.
Oh, if you just cut the treble,
Yes, that's right.
makes a big difference.
Yeah. Okay, look, I suppose we'll live with that. Yeah, so...
Take me out of the realm of hi-fi.
Well, you have to have special hi. You have to have run FM on 160 for that, I think.
Wasn't it good?
It was a big improvement.
Yeah, very good indeed.
Yeah, I think it's the way to go. And the fact that he had that equipment just sitting there for years, he could have used it.
Amazing, yeah. Well, I had mentioned to him several times that I thought he'd sound good on SM because I told him I was drawing the parallel with what you'd done.
Yeah, yeah. I think he was worried about popping the emitters, but the handbook for the 440 says it is designed for continuous operation at 100 watts.
He's got a muffin fan as
Yeah.
well anyway. Maybe I should do that.
I think fans, they make a big difference. Now, of course, running things in the summer when it's 100 degrees in the shack it makes a big difference.
Oh, it's huge, yeah.
Things can pop. It's just
The internal fan can't cope with it.
no, that's right. And I know in those really hot nights, I've got it. The whole place is hot, and there's just the heat coming out of the fans burns your hands. You know, it's just. Of course, it's another 30 degrees up on the ambient temperature.
Even the receiver gets hot.
Oh, I know. Yeah, it's I don't know how things survive that sort of heat.
No.
You wouldn't want to be a transistor because they get very hot, sitting there hot.
Or
and
a chip.
Oh, a chip. I forget about you expect valves to be hot, but
right.
the transistors, they
Don't want to be hot.
I think they like the life is less if they're hot.
Yes, I've heard that reduces their overall lifespan.
Yeah, I always have mine try and run them cool and have a fan on them.
Yeah.
And I think it does make them last a little bit longer.
Yeah, I'll get a little muffin fan.
Yeah, you can get them from J-Car. You can either get 12-volt ones or 240-volt ones, or no, 110. But I normally just use a 12-volt one and run it off the supply.
Yeah, well, that's the easy. I can very easily get 12 volts.
Yeah.
runs from the power supply.
Yeah, so have you got UHF there?
Look, I have, but I don't. I've got to reconfigure things.
Okay, maybe we could test that out one night.
Yeah, easily. I've got to put the antenna on a different terminal.
Right.
Obviously nothing at all, but then I've got to sort out a couple of other things, I think.
Right. Yeah. Oh, well,
yeah. Well, now, are you in a position to do Talky?
Talky is up and running at the moment.
I'd get Mr. Beck.
Yeah, well, it is running now. So, it's Mr. Is it Jeff from South Australia's on? So I'll just wind him up now.
Yeah.
I didn't expect him to be there this time. So
Television and hobbies.
oh, that's all right. I'll just turn off television hobbies. And Mr. Neville Williams.
Yes, that was a big addition. Are they always that big? 100 and something, 128 pages.
I think so. Yeah, they got big and then went small. You know how things go, and then they go broke.
Unfortunately.
Okay. Now, if I wind this up, if Jeff is there.
Check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Okay. Now you're coming through okay. I'll just make sure the levels are okay. So I have to put up the recording. Put up Cool Edit to use as a VU meter on the thing, and there we are. Okay, Jeff. Now I don't know if I had Frank up on the line, so if you like to speak, Frank, I'll make sure you're going up.
Yes. There we go. 1, 2, 3. Hello, testing.
Yep. You're up on the line to Skype to Talky.
Oh, very good.
Yeah. So
how are you, Jeff?
Thank you. Yeah, not bad actually tonight.
Good to have you with us.
I'm getting a little bit of strange feedback at the current moment, but I'll figure that out in a sec.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. Well, it's not having any effect here.
No, it's all incoming. Must be a problem incoming.
Yes, that's it. Oh, well, never mind. Now I hear I hate to raise the subject. He's gone.
He's gone.
Wait till we see if he pops back.
He'll probably pop back.
But I hear you've been having further internet issues. Would you rather not talk about it?
You wouldn't believe it. I'll just make sure the internet's still working here. I've got... oh, yeah, it's still working.
You might like to wait until you get some other help, because as John comes in, you'll have to tell us all that.
Yeah, I know. But it's luckily... I hope no one from Optus is listening, because although we've discontinued with them, it's still working, so I'm using that as a backup.
Right,
and it's working the best that it's ever had, because the cables, no one's on it, obviously.
No one's on it, yes, they're all migrated.
And it's, I think they probably thought there's pointless sending something out to turn it off. It's going to go off anyhow.
That's right.
And they just assume you're not going to use it because, it's whatever.
As long as they're not going to be charging you for it.
Well, they can't, because I'm not a customer.
There is that.
Coming up in this report, a big ticket engine failure.
Okay, that's okay. That's the internet's obviously working. That's a bit of YouTube there. So yeah, it's working. So obviously, and if I look at there's Noel's on. You don't know who's that? No, it is Noel. Noel's on from the Alfred. So. We're up if you want.
PJC.
Oh yes. Hello there. You're coming through. You haven't been on for a long time.
No.
And
it's the first time I tested this microphone too. How's it sound?
It sounds okay. And Jeff's back on again as well if he wants to talk. So I think Talky's the way to go.
Yeah. Better than radio.
Yes. So Noel's on from the Alfred ward. We know how good internet is in hospital. So if he drops out, we'll know it's not very good.
It's Peter James Centre near Chris Long.
Yes. This is the first hospital transmission on the mission since Les.
Since the Les hospital hours. How are they?
They were good.
Yep. And I see Mr. Noel's bear there. He's got the camera on.
Oh, right.
Mr. Les, he got smashed up in the motorcycle accident.
He did for a long time.
He had to have all these bones replaced with metal.
I know.
And then, of course, down south he gets arthritis, so he had to move up to Queensland.
Yeah, is that what happened?
Yes, that's the thing. I think with the that type of accident, when you get older, it
comes back and bites.
It does. So turn that off. So yeah, with the warmer temperature, I think he's better off.
Yes, well, I'd be better off too. So do we hear any communications from him?
Not. I did visit him a few years ago when I was up in Brisbane, but I haven't had any communication since then. I don't think.
I imagine he got married.
I think he did.
You have to have a woman who's the.
He had a woman. I don't know. He may be married or not. I don't know.
No, it doesn't matter. But I mean,
but he's attached.
I never saw anybody that was more. What can I say? Keen on women.
Liberal on women. Yeah. He seemed to have a lot.
He did.
And he was he's big in that sort of thing. Maybe as he's got older, he's slowed down a bit.
He just told me about it right off the cuff. I mean, I'd never spoken to him.
Really?
And he just casually mentioned that how much he and I'm not arguing with him, but I was a little bit surprised at the time.
Yeah. No, he's a busy man on the job.
He certainly was.
So, yeah. Now, I see Jeff's on, but he's not talking. He's got the speaker things muted, and that's muted. Does that mean anything if I mute that? No? Unmute. Okay, no, it is okay. If obviously he's just not talking, but he's on the line or has got something happening there.
I'm somewhere here. I don't know quite whether I've got this mic set up right.
Oh, sounds okay. It just sounds okay.
Still getting your feedback, Jeff?
No, not at the moment.
Yeah,
it all seems to be working correctly now.
Now,
sounds very good.
I think that might have been me.
Might have been.
I've got the headphones, so it's on now.
Oh, good. Now, because we're on the standby Optus circuit, it does drop out occasionally, so if it does, I'll have to go inside and reconnect it up and reboot. It might take a couple of minutes, but
we can talk.
You can talk. Well, you won't be able to because there's no everyone else is on talking.
I shall deliver a soliloquy.
You will have to. I mean, maybe I could put Neville Williams back on again for a bit.
I think that's the go.
Yes. So have you
have the antique NBN on at the moment, Dave?
I have, yes. The old Optus, although we're not a customer anymore, it's still running, and I've had to use that because the NBN cable, Aussie Broadband, well, it went off, and Aussie don't particularly interested in fixing it, and it's just an unbelievable story, which I might go into later on when the ratings are high, but it is that total contempt for customers.
That's what you paid to get away from.
Exactly. And I said, look, I'm going to demand a refund for this. And he said, well, the ACMA regulations are we're not obliged to give you a refund unless the outage is more than 10 days.
Oh, good grief.
We have to get that changed.
That is just... I don't understand any other consumer situation where you can be ripped off in broad daylight and there's nothing you can do.
So they could they could have 3 9-day outages.
So your month's pay's gone.
And you get nothing.
Yeah. It's absolute crap. And, obviously... it's a fault with the NBN. They have no clout with the NBN, and if the NBN says it takes a week to fix, well, they can't do anything about it. I've had no phone and no internet for about a week. It's just unbelievable. You'd think they were essential services.
Yeah, absolutely.
I can't believe it. And this is exactly what I wanted to get away with. And anyway, I'll go into it later on, but when the ratings are high. But I can't tell when the ratings are high because I've got no one on the stream now. So once you can see the little meter go up when the ratings went up. But
it will come at some point.
Yes.
And Mr. John will come at some point.
Yes, it'll be something like that.
You know what? He's not going to be able to find us.
No, that'll be... that's so sad.
Watch it out for the replay.
Yes, that's right. He knows unless he tunes around or whatever.
Oh, he will. I guess he will. I was just being a bit facetious.
Now, Noel, how are you going there in the Alfred?
PJC, Peter James Centre, Eastburn. Sorry, I've got high split block.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, getting better. I need to be... There's a bit of delay here. I need to be fully assessed before I can come home.
Right.
But could be another month here in PJC.
Right.
Bed 9 in Centre Ward.
Okay, well, anyone wants to visit Mr. Noel?
Yep.
Yeah, that'd be good. So, and they're treating you okay there?
Yep. I sort of was shanghaied from Box Hill this morning, actually.
Oh.
From Box Hill with short notice. But I'm here now.
Do you like it as much as Box Hill, Noel, or is it too early to say?
Not really.
I was in Box Hill when I had my stroke last year. 3 days in a day in emergency and 2 days not. And I was amazed how good it was.
Yeah. Well, I suppose it's different staying 3 days and staying 3 weeks.
There is that, Dave, yeah. There is that.
Maybe, Frank, if you could talk it up or talk closer to the mic, might fix the signal and noise a bit.
Yeah, I can do that.
Yeah, that's better. Let's really talk it up.
Okay.
It's not distorting or anything, that's fine.
I'm close talking. Am I blasting?
No, it sounds really clear.
I've got very good techno. I'm just talking across the mic, Dave.
It's excellent. There's no wind noise or anything.
Okay, that's good. Good.
That's very good.
Yep. So, Noel, you've only been in the Alfred, what, today? Or this week?
No, the Alfred was 5 weeks ago.
Oh.
Hyperbaric treatment in hyperbaric chamber to help cure the wound.
Right. All sounds most unfortunate.
It's the only hospital in the public system really that's got a hyperbaric chamber.
Is that right?
That's surprising.
Yeah.
So that puts more oxygen in the air. Is that the idea?
Yeah. And into the bloodstream.
Right. Well.
They use it for divers who have the bends, don't they?
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
Keep the pressure up.
That's it.
So, what do you spend your time doing in there?
Oh, fill my time with digital internet radio, I suppose. Got the Windows PC here, Windows 10, so...
Right. Yeah, I guess you'd have a bit of time on your hands. I'm always thinking,
apart from 5 hours, 3 times a week on dialysis.
Right.
But anyway.
Yeah, it sounds like a bit of a pain. So I guess you'd like to go...
Teddy bear.
Yeah, a nice teddy.
Joe.
A bright blue teddy bear. Is showing me. Purple.
Oh, wonderful! You've got viewing missions.
Yeah, I've got viewing missions to. To know.
Wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's really good. Well, to hear from the wonder of Talky to be able to do this sort of stuff makes you wonder why you come on air. Really.
Sell all our ham gear.
We should.
Just get mobile phones.
Yeah. Although, yes, there's the microphone. He's showing me the mic and the red light. Yeah, well, the only thing is, look, the internet here, well, we've had trouble with the internet. We only have 1 bar of service on the mobile phone. So it's dicey.
It is.
And if it's even more dicey for data. It is just crap. So you really have to rely on the old radio waves, or no, the analogue radio waves to get anything in this area.
Yeah.
Which is pretty stupid in 2000 and whatever it is.
In a sort of very well-populated area, settled area.
Yeah.
It's not as though you're at the back of Perth or anything like that.
The problem is, because we're like in a house, well, a residential area which is bordered by sort of four main roads, I suppose: Glenhuntly Road, North Road, Koonang, and Grange Road. We're sort of in the middle of that. So all the cell towers seem to be in the periphery on the main roads.
Yes.
So it's like a kilometre or more. Our nearest Telstra tower is on a shop about 2 kilometres away. It's one of these really short ones, just about 2 feet off the roof of the shop. So it's a very poor signal.
Well, they'll be starting to put LTE 5 in soon.
Well, that's right. But knowing how far, I mean, if 4G at whatever it is, gigahertz, 1.8 doesn't go very far. I think the 60 gigahertz or whatever they're using is going to go about. It's almost as good as Chris Long's light beam system.
Right.
We'll have to put reflectors and mirrors up.
They've got to have them very close together, haven't they?
Yeah, like about in every house.
That's right.
in a pole outside every house.
Right.
So,
might as well connect them up with cables.
Well, that's the thing, of course. If they connect them up with optic cable, then you've got the whole optica system, which they're going to do anyhow. But
yes, you've got all your eggs in the one basket there.
I know. See, this is the problem.
Yeah.
Now, talk about eggs and baskets. You know, the other week the Telstra had a big outage and the banks all went offline and shopping and everyone's mobiles and stuff. Digital radio went off as well.
Yes, that's right. Cathy listens to that.
So, I mean, that's not a very good system. What about if the Russians or somebody, Chinese, wanted to bug our software, turn off the whole internet? They'd have no way of communicating to the public.
No way whatsoever, and they already have the port of Darwin, so they could very easily launch.
They could.
I think that the thinking is that you'd see the flash and wouldn't know much more than that.
Yeah, but I mean...
from the bomb dropping.
Yeah, but I mean, they don't have to drop a bomb. I see Mr. Sanjan's receiver room now. I'm sure it works really well in the hospital ward. Buzz. But
That's right.
The trouble is that they could wreck the society by turning off our internet, and if we didn't have analogue radio, no one would know anything. There'd be anarchy in the UK or wherever. And of course, then probably the power system would go down, the water system, the sewage system, because everything's controlled, and we'd be back in the Stone Age in about a week.
The hams will come to the fore and rescue the country.
Well, they would. I can turn the big emitters here. I can tune it down to, I think it'll go down to about 13 kilohertz, 1.3 megs. So I'd just come on the broadcast band and be the end of the world radio. I'd play old standby tapes from 3LO.
That's right.
And
you'd have to pump the wattage up a bit, I think.
Yeah, well,
anyway.
Maybe I should get a special high power license just for emergency use.
Just in case. That's right.
Yep.
End of world emergency license.
Yes, and it could have to test it every week.
Of course, about this time.
Yep. So maybe that's a legitimate way, saying there should be local radio stations. Although, see, 100 watts. If you look in the 1930s, 40s, a lot of stations were only 200 watts.
They were, but the ambient noise floor was a lot lower.
It was, and people would put up with less quality and hiss and noise and stuff.
They're just glad to hear anything sometimes.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so, but...
Still.
Yeah, look, I'd do it if that happened. You could go on 774 and put up a kite antenna.
Yeah, it'd be a long wire.
It certainly would be more reliable than the NBN. I mean, we had a little bit of a power flick here the other day, and we didn't have any phone calls for a while, and I was getting a bit suspicious. And so I reset the modem, and suddenly all these phone calls came in.
I know, that's a terrible situation. See, once the phone was the standard, it'd always work. And if you rang up PMG or Telstra, they'd come right out and fix up the wire. But now they don't care. I think they assume everyone has mobiles, but as I said, the mobile coverage here is pretty dodgy. So it's, I don't know, maybe we're just grumpy old men and we don't understand the new world. That's what it could be.
I had an Optus mobile service, and I only found out after I'd had it for a couple of years, but the mobile capacity was drawn out from was actually unused capacity on that they used on their fixed exchange. They were able to. So if the fixed exchanges went out, I would also lose communication.
Yeah. Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, well, Silicon Chip, March or April this year, had a letter to the editor regarding the emergency contacts after the NBN goes in, and it's a safety of life issue.
Yeah, it certainly is.
For many people, that's right.
Yeah. Well, look, same here, like... Our phone's been off for a week. Now, look, I understood that when we go to the NBN, the phone isn't 100% reliable. Like, you know, it might be off for a few minutes every now and then, or maybe a couple of hours. But a week with no phone, people might be trying to contact me or whatever. That's pretty bad.
It's not acceptable.
It is not acceptable. And I told the guy, this is just not acceptable. And he said, oh, well, you know.
What are you going to do about it?
Yeah, basically. I think next time I'll just say, look, fix this, or let me speak to your supervisor, or put me through to the accounts department because I want to cancel the contract. We're not on a contract a month thing. I'll just say I'm going to cancel, and you know, go to Telstra or someone. I don't know. Maybe I might end up back at Optus. Maybe I should have the four, as many suppliers as they are.
Yeah, get them all queued up.
That's right. Put them in series or parallel, so I'll have super internet.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's only cost you $200 or $300 a month.
I know, isn't that ridiculous? But it is really good having the backup of the old Optus system. I was going to pull it all down, but we don't need it now. But I'll just leave it up.
Don't do that.
No, always leave it there. Yeah. The modem's just been sitting there flashing for a few months, but now the Aussie one's flashing because it's got no signal. It keeps
It's amazing that it occupies the same line, so you must be co-sharing the same telephone line. So the fault must be at the exchange.
Well, the Optus is on the HFC overhead cable, and the Aussie Broadband's on the underground Telstra HFC cable. So they're two different systems.
That would explain a heck of a lot. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. But see, what happened last week, we had a planned outage of the NBN. They sent me an email. It was going to be off for 8 hours from 8 o'clock in the morning till 4 in the afternoon, which I thought was pretty bad. And what happened was, after the outage finished, our internet didn't come back on. Now, next door, which has Telstra, their internet was off as well, but it came back on at 4 o'clock, and ours never did.
No, something wrong.
So what? So obviously,
did you try resetting the modem?
I tried. I did all those sorts of things, and then when I rang up Aussie Broadband, I did them all again. You know, because that's what you've got to do.
They always do it.
Yeah. And I said, that's ridiculous. I told the guy, look, what I think's happened is they've done all this work at the exchange or on the lines, and then when they've reconfigured it all, they've made a mistake somewhere, and I'm not connected anymore. And to be as simple as that, probably a couple of keystrokes, you know, it might be something like that. Or they haven't patched in a patch lead or something.
Yep.
And he said, we've got to contact the NBN, we've got to send somebody out to your place to check it all over before we even can start looking at the internal problems. So,
just stupid bureaucracy.
Absolutely. And I said, this is stupid because it went off. I tried to tell him, and he said, well, you know, this is what we have to do. Then the guy's going to come out and he's going to say, oh yeah, he's going to polish the wires and, you know, all this stuff. And then he's going to go back and it'll be just like what happened to Optus. We had the guy out about every month to come and polish I said, look, it's intermittent, keeps dropping out. He'd polish the wires, put in new sockets, replace bits of cable, all this sort of stuff, and it wouldn't change. And I'd say, look, the fault is at your end, you know. And they say, oh no, it's this. Look, this bit of cable, look, it's a bit dirty. This is causing a problem. They treat you like you're an imbecile, absolute imbecile.
Well, see, they get away with 99.7% of the population.
They do.
They don't know any better themselves.
No, that's right. And these guys, they've got no No, they're not linies. They're not. I think they just did a 1 week course of how to
that's it.
drill a hole in the wall badly
That's right.
and knock the
They don't even
furniture
know why
down.
they're doing things.
They don't know anything.
They just know what they've got to do.
Yep, they go through a list, and if something's out of they can't think beyond the box because they don't know anything beyond the box. I see Noel's nodding there.
There's a tremendous amount of cost that's involved in setting the NBN up if you've got bad wiring in your house, that's for sure.
Yeah. Well, see, this though, all the wiring's new. The guy, all the NBN wiring is totally new. It was put in 2 months ago. The guy came here and put it in. He was going to, and I think I told you the story, but it's so bad I've got to tell it again. He came along, he said, oh yes, we're going to put the NBN box here and we're going to drill a hole through this wall and put the modem there. I said, well, we've got a very long house and where we wanted to put it was a bedroom. And I said, first of all, we don't want a flashing modem in the bedroom.
Of course you don't.
And then its wireless signal isn't going to cover the rest of the house because it's 100 feet down to there. I said, we want it in the middle of the house.
Yeah,
he goes, no, we've got to put it here. And he started drilling this hole in the brick. I said, look, if you keep drilling the hole in the brick, it's going to drill through to a wardrobe on that wall.
Yeah.
And I said, he said, well, you have to move the wardrobe.
What?
And I said, it weighs about 10 tons. It's an old antique thing.
Yeah.
I said, come in, have a look. And he said, oh yeah, you have to move that. I said, I'm not rearranging the furniture in my house to suit you.
Right.
Because, see, these guys, they probably paid on each job. And if they can do a job in half an hour, they can do 10 jobs a day.
That's exactly right.
If they do what they're meant to do and mainly do 1 or 2 jobs a day, they've organised the business is organised for quick shit work, not for quality work.
And that's why you've nearly always got to get somebody come back.
Yeah.
After the so-called install, we had to get someone to come back.
I know.
Fortunately, the second time we got a decent techo, and he actually knew what he was doing.
That's amazing.
It was just a pure fluke.
And I said, look, you've got to put the cable down to where the Optus one is. And he goes, we can't do that. We're not allowed. We can't get into your roof, and we're not allowed to staple it along the side of the wall like the Optus one was. I said, well, why not? He said, it's not in the regulations. And I said, look, I'm giving you permission to do it. And he goes, no, we can't do it. And I said, look, if you put it in the bedroom, after you go, I'm going to have to spend time and money, buy cable, and put it the way I want it,
Good on you.
And then, when...
How did he react to that?
He said, and I said, look, when they send the thing to me saying that, what was a customer satisfaction, I'll just say I had to do the whole job again, and it was useless. He said, I'll ring up the boss, see what happens. And he rings up the boss, and he was... He was a gentleman from the subcontinent, but I mean that's nothing to do with it. It's just that they got incompetent people, and anyway he got out the cable, and I had to help him do it, get the ladder from the garage and nail all these things in, and the cable was about 2 feet too short, so I had to throw that away and get another bit of cable. And then
effectively you were his supervisor.
I was his lackey, but I was actually telling him what to do.
Right.
And he drilled a hole in the wall, and he poked the wire through. It was the wrong place. Had to drill another hole, and then he just got this thing in on the wooden wall. Just drilled a hole and stuck the socket in there. So it wouldn't even fit to where the modem was with a cable, so I had to move that. And it was just it was a comedy of errors. It was. As I think I've said before, there's an old Laurel and Hardy cartoon where they're both they're working as electricians back in the 1930s, and they haven't got a clue what they're doing. They're just drilling holes in this mansion, and wires are poking through, and just like walls got all wires poking out, and there's zapping things and all sort of stuff. Then the woman of the house comes in and goes berserk because they've ruined the house. It was just that sort of thing.
Yeah, terrible. Absolutely.
So. It was
apparently they are allowed to go under the roof and in the roof.
They are, but
I believe
we've got no roof space because it's it's only about 6 inches. It's a flat roof place, so they can't go in the roof.
Oh, right.
And then they're not allowed supposedly to put the cable outside under the eaves. which was quite good enough for the.
Yeah, that's what the sensible thing to do.
Yep. You know, if they want to put conduit tube there or just nail it, I don't care. It's it's just unbelievable that they do these things, and it's all designed to soak up money. I think it's a work creation program or something. There should be a big royal commission and heads should roll, I think.
Absolutely.
What happened with our NBN is that we're at the end of an ADSL line originally, 7 kilometres away.
It's a long way.
And yes, and it was very slow, obviously. And when they said the word NBN is coming to your area some stage in the near future, meaning like 2 or 3 years away, I got onto the NBN people and said, well, I'm interested. And they were sort of canvassing people for interest factor at that point. And I stuck my name down on this list. And lo and behold, the magic green box that does the translation turned up at the bottom of our street, all of about 150 feet away from our house.
Oh, great.
So I ended up with 100 by 40 speed, top speed.
That's pretty good.
You must have some special sort of influence.
So you and
I don't know what happened, but I think it's because of the distance, and we were just on the edge of the rim of the cable. So when they ran the fibre optic cable in, they ran it to the green box and then split it out from there.
Can you imagine if it wasn't quite long enough? Then you would have been the long end of a cable with about one 200 board.
20 feet. 20 feet more.
Yep. Oh, you can be lucky.
I know. That's very fast, Jeff.
Yeah.
It is actually, and I pay $100 a month for phone, and that's all calls to mobiles free, and all calls around the country for free.
Unlimited.
And unlimited data. Yep, unlimited data. So I can get down terabytes of data. And I frequently do a lot of downloads off YouTube. I'm a train nut, so amongst other things. So and of course the ham radio stuff. But trains are particularly a fond thing of mine. So I like looking at different videos and so on.
Right.
Of what's around.
You've got the bandwidth to do it, haven't you?
There's a great train video on. First of all, what supplier are you with?
I'm with Existential.
Oh right, okay.
If you've heard of Existential,
not really.
Although they're a Filipino company, they were actually pretty good. Originally, I was with a small company called Bigfoot. Even though it's a small company, it was Bigfoot, NBN, and I always look for small companies that have very good rates as far as money-wise, and they're usually start-up companies that grow.
Yep.
And they actually turn into some of the best companies around for...
Right.
Generally, they work harder to keep their customers happy.
Yeah, the big companies get complacent. What's that one customer and they've got 1 million? Who cares? Just piss them off. In fact, the problem customers, get rid of them. They don't need to worry about them anymore.
More companies are anxious.
In the end,
that's right.
In the end, there was another company that was starting up, and I thought, well, I can actually get a better dollar bang for buck because being on a disability pension, you got to make everything count. So, anyway, I went to a company called Mungie, which was up in Sydney. They don't exist anymore. They went bankrupt of all things. It was just unfortunate. And so I then went to Existential, and their rates were even better. So it turned out in the end, and they even supplied the modem for us, and everything was brilliant. It was really good. It's no problem at all. We do power line networking to the television set in the lounge. Right. But the NBN modem is in what is called the computer room, which is in the middle of the house in a bedroom. And I'm a computer buff as well. I build my own computers. plus I've got all my ham radio gear in here.
All right.
More my reception gear. I don't transmit, obviously. This is the only way that you get to talk to me is on Talky.
Yeah. Well, it's better that.
But I have three computers. Well, 2 computers that are functional at the current moment. Third one under construction. They're all water-cooled computers. They're high-end gaming computers and video processing computers.
Are you big into gaming?
I'm old now, but I still play usually first-person shooter games, or I even tinker occasionally with Minecraft, just as an exercise to keep the brain sharp. It's a mathematical game, and it actually works.
Okay, that's good.
I had as a result of the brain tumour that I had many, many years ago, I had some cognizance problems that had to be worked out with balance and so on. Yeah. And strangely enough, one of the things that works is is Minecraft, and working with the brain in that way in construction and modifying structures in a three-dimensional world. So it works.
Yeah, I think you have to keep exercising your brain, and more than just doing things like watching soap operas or something, or reading the Herald Sun. You need actually to do something that stresses. It takes a bit of sweat and toil from the brain.
Some of the total drivel that's on TV. My goodness.
Oh, yeah, it's ridiculous, isn't it?
Yes, it's pretty bad. But you sometimes I strike various young kids that sort of pass by in conversation in someone's house or whatever, and they say, "You play Minecraft?" They look at you incredulously. This 65-year-old,
65 is young. You're not old.
You're just a boy.
You're just a boy. Yeah.
Well, I sure don't look, but I tell you, I look like
Methuselah. You'd be the boy of the
yeah, look, and if Steve comes on, he'll be a baby.
He will. That's right.
It's look, age is a funny thing. I don't feel any different to when I was 5 and 65 or whatever.
Neither do I, really.
No. So I think it's all ridiculous, the ageism thing. The good thing about on air, I suppose, or maybe we sound old, I don't know, who knows. But anyway, back to the railway videos. There's a great one who's got a guy's compiled all these bad lines and bad connections and like bad joints, and there's got these trains rolling along and the rails lifting up off the sleepers, and there's bolts falling out and nails coming off, and it's going clunk, clunk, bang, bang, and the noise is incredible as well. And some of these are in India, some the US or whatever. But there's some really badly maintained train lines around.
Bulgaria is a brilliant place.
Yes,
Romania is an even brilliant place for seeing that too.
Yes, I think they're the countries that the best ones are in. Yes, that's right. And you see this train coming along, and they're heavily used lines as well.
I think they'd have huge accidents.
Well, they just go slow, I suppose.
They go slow, or it just might quietly derail.
It might, yes.
Yeah.
And
I remember seeing a video from India where the people were sitting in the carriages seats, and they were literally being bounced 2 foot in the air before they come back down on the seat.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, it's interesting. There's another video that's been on for years of them at a US Army training video film in the Second World War, and they're trying to work out the best way to derail a train. And they got this old steam train with a few carriages, obviously something that's, it doesn't matter if it blows up because it's old, but they put explosives on the line, they blow up various parts of the line, and it's amazing how hard it is to derail a train.
Really?
It's
I suppose they keep on going in a straight line for a while after they've lost line.
It's like they blow about a foot. One side of the rail they blow about a foot off. It just comes rolling up, kabang, kabang, and it just jumps back onto the thing. Then they blow about 5 feet off. It crunches through bits of wood and stuff, from the sleepers are flying up. Then kabang, goes back on the line. Then they blow both sides off, and it just clunks along, and then bumps back on the line again.
Yes, it's incredible. It's got such momentum.
And then they, on a curve is the easiest way. Like if you want to wreck it, you have to do it on a curve.
That's hard for a trainer at any time, isn't it?
So they recommend doing. Oh, because we will be banned now because we're talking about. Oh no.
God, yeah, that's right.
Oh, we're talking about model trains. We're talking about doing it on model trains. That's right. Yes, that's right. Yeah. So if you want to derail your model plane, you put a little penny bunger and blow out that bit of rail that's going around a curve.
That's it. That's the way to do it.
And it might. But even that isn't a guaranteed thing because sometimes. Like the wheels will derail, but the others will stay on.
So if you get enough on, they can drag the others back on.
That's right, they do eventually. They sort of drag back on.
Wouldn't do the line any good.
It doesn't do things any good, but at least it doesn't derail.
It's better than derailing.
That's right. So, yes.
It'd be amazing to witness it, wouldn't it?
It would be, yeah.
I mean, it'd be pretty terrifying, I suppose, but the noise and the sparks that you'd see with the metal on metal.
Well, there
was one video that I had in Bulgaria where the actual engine caught fire. And the guy's still going flat out around about 100k per hour.
He doesn't know.
And there's flames pouring out the side of the engine. And then he suddenly sees the smoke and he sort of looks out the window and he catches it and sort of mirrored in the window somewhere.
Yeah.
There was this panicked confusion, and then him trying to apply the emergency brake, which is by now disconnected, melted, and on. And he just leaves. He literally leaves the cab, with the camera still running. And he literally leaves the cab.
Yeah.
The aftermath, when he got that back to the station, they towed this thing into the station. God knows how he survived.
I know.
It's just a mess, total mess.
You'd think your number was up, wouldn't you?
Well, a lot of these
absolutely.
When there's you see it like the cab cam, as two trains about to collide and the drivers just jump out. That's the best option. They might break their legs, but they're not going to be dead.
Be smashed. If they didn't jump out, they'd certainly die.
And there's a few, dash cam videos of derailments, and there's another good one. Someone in the US, they're just filming a train, out of interest, and it starts to wobble. I say, oh, look, it's wobbling. Then it derails, and it's on like an embankment. Then it just tips over down the embankment, knocks down all these power poles as big sparks, and they're just saying, what the F, they're just dumbfounded. They've actually filmed it. And they said, well, I hope no one thinks that we've made it happen, so we got it on.
That's right. Yeah, that's a worry.
And all the noise and the dust and everything, it's just...
chaos.
Yep.
It's usually not the engine that suffer, it's usually the carriages behind, and that's where the real problem comes in. It's that survivability factor.
Yeah.
Of course, they've got the people.
Yep, that's right. Yeah, so it's amazing. But I guess...
You ran the bullet train. Well, you did the bullet train in Japan, didn't you?
Yeah, they were very good, very smooth.
Yeah, my son said it's the best railway system he's ever seen.
You hardly know you're speeding at all. It just goes along, and it's smoother than our suburban trains.
Yeah, that's right.
And they've got special sensors. If there's an earthquake, they stop, which is good.
Very good.
And... I wouldn't be too happy about stopping in the middle of a tunnel. It might fall on top of you. Mount Fuji might fall on your head.
Tunnel in an earthquake is not the place to be.
Yeah, so, but see, they've had them for a long time. The Nippons with all their little... Well, they've always been big on railways, I think.
And there's the maglev in China.
Yes, that's right. They've invested massive money on that.
Very cost effective.
I don't think it is I think it's just they've got...
The showpiece.
Yep, showpiece, and it's opening up, territories that aren't, I think it went up in Tibet or something, got a big high-speed train there just to show off. Yeah. And it's, look, it's not... wouldn't be economic in a capitalist society, and it's not even worthwhile in their society. It doesn't really carry much passengers. Just as you say, it's a showpiece.
It's not very efficient in terms of the power that it uses.
No, they're megawatts those trains use.
Yeah.
Well, on the subject of just trains within Australia, we have very limited train systems in Australia in comparison to places like Germany and so on. The train system, well, the last time I was in Druin in Victoria, the trains weren't that good, but I hear now that they have got high-speed lines and it's been revamped and it goes down far as Sale and so on like that. So
look, they've done an amazing job. The times now are equivalent to the steam trains in the 1920s. They've got back to that, which is pretty good.
It is, because they were moving along.
Yep. And look, the Bendigo line, they spent millions on that, or tens of millions, or billions, or whatever, and it's not. It's slower. It takes longer to get there than before they did it. There's been.
Good grief.
And that it used to be a double line. Now it's a single line. It's not. It's a total, stuff up, really. Well, they should have got the Nippons and paid them some money and say, you build a little train here.
We had a few problems down here. We've got a new line extension out to a suburb, some 50 kilometres out of the city, and it had quite a few teething problems with bridges that had gaps appeared in the bridges where they shouldn't have, and expansion joints which did not expand, and but they've slowly gotten it ironed out, and it looks pretty good, and it seems to travel pretty well. So it's not bad. It's done its job of at least moving people, but. That's a two-track expansion. It's not one of these single lines that have to Mickey Mouse around other traffic and so on.
I know. Once you have a single line, you're really compromised if the traffic starts to get heavy. So what suburbs does it go to?
You mean the new line? It goes out to from Adelaide City to Aldinga, basically. It's Seaford, Aldinga.
Is that down south or north?
It's going north.
Okay. Yeah.
How long is it? How long is it, Jet?
It's about 50k. It's around about 50k.
Serious line.
It's relatively short.
Yeah.
Relatively short.
Yeah, when I was in Adelaide a few years ago, we went. I took. Normally if I go to a city, I play around the suburban railway just to see what you see, and it's more. It's interesting, just looking at different things. Oh, that's right. We went up to. Was it Gawler? You can take a train to Gawler. I think we went up to there.
Yep.
Yeah,
indeed.
That was quite an interesting trip. You go past the airfield. You go past the I think
military stuff.
Yep, and past the ABC tenors or someone's tenors there, and that was quite a interesting trip. Yeah, I'm just looking at Google Earth now. Yeah. Gee.
The train system is very slow to advance here. They're actually extending one line at the moment to go from the city to the Flinders Medical Centre, so that people who have busted bones and are bleeding to death can hop on the train and get there.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
Very good. Yeah. Cope with the medical emergency.
We have an ambulance service that's just wanting at the current moment.
Oh,
so,
no.
Yes, there's a lot of ramping going on at these hospitals and so on.
Yes.
They figure that sticking a train there will actually make it go worse. Better, I mean.
Yeah. I mean, Adelaide isn't that like, it's pretty flat, and it's not the hard city to get around, really, compared to some.
No.
And it's just looking at that on the map here. It's amazing how the suburbs just stop dead at the hills. Just it's almost a dead stop. That's expanded as far as it can.
I'm actually on the foot at the bottom of one of those foothills.
Really?
Just in front of behind a reservoir. In the trees there. So if I were to go, say, 200 metres in one direction, I'd be starting to climb up the bank, and I'd love to do that because you're up the hill, because I'd love to stick the antennas on top of that.
Yeah. It's interesting.
It certainly would.
We went up to Mount Lofty, and it's quite high. That's as high as Mount Dandenong. It's 2,000 feet. It's not a small mountain. It doesn't look that high, but it actually is. And
it actually snows on there.
It does snow there. And you can see the ABC towers, and there's there's one, I think, one of them's derelict, and they've just pulled everything off and put it on the other ones. I think it's the old 9 ones are sitting there.
That's right. What they've done is they've got 3 transmission towers, 3 big ones. They've repurposed them to wireless internet.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and digital TV, of course.
Yeah,
of course. Sure. 7 and 9.
Yep.
10 network, I think, co-shares with 9, and SBS sort of stands alone on its little its own ground. So it's basically the antennas, the old analog systems that were in there have been completely redone and repurposed, and some of the antennas have been replaced and the coax reused for the internet. So there you go.
Yeah, because it's unlike Mount Dandenong, which is 20 miles from the city. They're not that far. Like they would cover the metropolitan area very well.
Very easily, you'd think.
Yeah, like Adelaide must have been a very simple city to cover for TV when they first started. Unlike Sydney, particularly, which isn't very easy.
Well, even here, I can hear aircraft on the ground. I use a ground plane antenna, a scantenna.
Yeah.
They call it, I suppose. But it's a ground plane antenna on the top of the roof, and it picks up aircraft on the ground down at Adelaide Airport while they're taxiing, and then of course at least 70 miles out or 70 kilometres out from the airport.
Right.
As they talk back to the tower and get their clearances and so on, which is interesting.
So
we get all of the CFS, Country Fire Service, truck to truck, and that. So we know when to run if the bushfire decides to come down our way.
So they haven't gone to a totally digital system yet, or have they? That's CFS.
Most of the communications have, but it is fairly well trunking network as it stands.
Right.
But there is some when they're actually in field, they tend to use FM and earlier model transmitters, because it works it tends to work better in the valleys and and some of the areas that they have to work in when they're fighting a fire.
Yeah, I'm not surprised about that. Yeah, and you don't get that direct drop off if it's not working properly.
I'm just going to get a drink.
Okay, sure. Oh, that's interesting. Okay. So you are actually up the hill a little bit.
Yeah, we're not very far up the hill, but we are. We can sort of see over. If I stand on the roof of the house, I can see over the reservoir, and I can actually see the sea in the distance.
Right.
From where I am, I've got if I were to stand on the roof of the house, I can look over the top of the trees, down to the reservoir, which is Happy Valley Reservoir. And then from Happy Valley Reservoir, it goes straight out. There's a big transmission antenna with a top hat on, capacity hat on top of it. It's got some fancy name, but it, I think, broadcasts on 834 kilohertz, 834 on the broadcast band, and several other. I think it's a dual antenna because it's split in the top section, and the top section is shorter than the bottom section, and they're both insulated. So I think that there's two transmitters on different frequencies using the same tower. I don't know if that's the case, but there's a massive capacity hat on top of this thing.
Gee.
And it's about 250 foot high.
Right. Now I'm looking at reservoirs. I've got the Millbrook Reservoir, And another one here, I'll zoom in. What is it? It's the Kangaroo Creek Reservoir.
Look for Happy Valley and Aberfoyle Park.
Aberfoyle Park.
Look for that.
Yeah. Oh, so I see Aberfoyle. I see. Yes, I see a little reservoir. And Happy Valley. Well, now I can see where you are. So wave out your hand, and we'll say hello. Yeah, down the south of.
We're actually just on the reverse side of the reservoir, heading towards the hill, and the hill's there, and that's where we are. So we've got the main receiving antenna for shortwave. It's 120 foot long. It's a G5RV modified, slung up between those two trees, and it works extremely well, surprisingly well. And I can also parallel just join together the basic coax into shorted out, basically. So it's one gigantic long wire, centre-fed long wire, and I can hear you on a good transmission night on 1.8. So
that's pretty good.
On 160 metres,
Yeah. Now I'm looking at, I know that's a power line, not a transmission tower. Yeah, well, look, Adelaide, I mean, I've heard myself in Adelaide many times. It seems to be quite good. There is some SDRs there, but they never seem to pick me up. I think they've got bad antennas or noise or something. It's
Correct.
I've just driven there with the mobile antenna and the Codan, and the mission just boom through. So it's not Adelaide's not that far really. So good. Aberfoyle Park.
Wow. Yeah, that's where we are. So there's I find Talky. Well, obviously I can transmit to you guys. So and under your general directorship, I can go on the air. So
that's right. You're being heard by 5 people all around the world.
Yes, and about 2 Japanese people, I think, and 1 German person, I think, that's in Europe.
Is that right?
Who listens in quite regularly.
Oh,
yes.
Good.
There's a chap there who's a friend,
right,
who listens in.
Well, you never know who's listening in this world. But, yeah.
Yeah. Well, now I was going to ask a question. Chris, who used to turn up on your
Chris
show,
Long,
on your
AML.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I believe that's who it is, and a very cultured man.
Yes, that's right.
What's happened to him these days? I hardly hear him on.
He was on a replay before I came on.
Yes.
But live,
that's what.
He's. I think he's given radio the miss. He's got sick of it, so he's not coming on anymore.
He actually sounds like a hell of a presenter when he speaks. He's got one of these voices that really works well.
Well, he used to be a big man on the wireless. He used to do it. He's been on air for a long. Well, he did a series of programs on Radio National years ago, on the history of sound and his usual topics, and. So he's had a lot of, and he's been on community radio quite a bit, anyway, even on TV a bit. So he has had some, not just, and he started on 160, so that's pretty good, isn't it? He used to go around to the branches place and talk on there. But look, I remember once he had this program on Radio National and was talking about his normal topics, and I was working in New South Wales at the time at Griffith, and I was driving back, I think, and at night tuning the radio band, and I was very envious. I was tuning the car in the analog, AM radio in the car, and every second spot had his voice on it. From one end of the dial to the other, all networked on the ABC. I thought, he's got megawatts of power just going out. So that's a bit better than my 120 watts or whatever. But yes, he had a big voice then.
Who are we talking about?
Chris.
Oh, right.
Sorry.
Yeah, go on.
And he's about 6 years older than me.
Right.
Went to the same primary school.
Is that right? Oh.
Yep.
Do you remember him?
No, I don't.
Well, he always...
when I put some preps.
Yeah.
He always appears to me, he appears audibly to me that he really knows his stuff. It's about sound and audio. And
He does.
So
Look, he's got a lot to add, that's for sure. I've got millions of hours of recording of him, but no, it's always good if he wants to come up again, that's fine. He could always use Talky or whatever. So anyway, look, no doubt he'll pop up at some stage. But he has been on an awful lot. So look, maybe he's just having a rest. Maybe he's over-talked. Who knows? But these things happen.
It's about a cave for me right now.
Oh, right.
Isn't there some folks who got sort of a bit cheesed off with interruptions and people who were triggering repeaters and so on?
Oh well, he got pissed off because some people were jamming him and stuff. So it's a bit of a long story. So he's decided to take leave for the time being.
Yeah, until it calms down, I guess.
Yeah, that's right.
If you spot him,
I'll give him a regard. Look, his
intelligence and candour on the radio is well worthwhile.
I think. Look, there's a very good chance he's listening in his head. If I hear a big, it'll be his head exploding. Over the distance from Burwood or wherever he is. So. That'll be the thing.
Yeah, no.
Anyway, I'm sure he's listening.
Say evening to Chris.
Yep. Yeah, so Steve said he might come on, but he's going to be... he said he's not going out as usual, so he may not be back in time, which doesn't matter. We've got a three-way turf talk, which is good. Look, anyone else wants to come on 145.3 megahertz or 437.8 megahertz, or on Talky, just go to talky.io and type in X bands. And I think.
Oh, look at that!
Did someone come in?
We got a few.
Yeah. No, there was a noise there. That Jeff and.
We've got a null. We've got a null.
Null. What's
two nulls?
What's a null mean?
Two nulls and a null. Two nulls on a null.
Yeah.
And me.
What's the null mean? Nothing.
No name, I think.
Oh, right. Okay. Okay. Well, if Mr. Null wants to talk, that's fine. He can go ahead. But apparently not. Yeah. So what else is interesting to talk about? I'm just trying to think. It's.
I was going to ask you, how, what's the current legal status of actually playing music when you do play music? How do you get away with that?
The regulations are rewritten, in the early 2000s. There's no music, no mention of music whatsoever. No mention of it.
Oh well, of course. I mean, I'm just imagining it, of course. I don't really hear this, but I keep hearing this 1930s tune in my head every time I come across the crossband. So don't know what it is. There's nothing against music being played on the air. It's purely. So there was people in the old regulations. It says specifically forbidden things. Music was one of them. Now it doesn't mention music at all. It does mention entertainment. Now, what's entertainment? I think what they mean is if you had a music program and getting sponsors and talking to just anybody, that could be pushing it a bit.
I think money is their main worry.
Otherwise people could get an amateur license for $50 a year and be a broadcasting station. So
true enough, yes.
I think if you just come on
and make money out of it.
Yep.
And hello.
Hello, Steve. I think if you just come on and occasionally, I don't think they care. They couldn't care less, as Steve's proven.
That's right. Well, of course, that's not entertainment anymore.
No, as he keeps saying.
Certainly not entertainment.
Yeah. So
can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you fine.
Very loud and clear.
Yeah, that's good. Look, I'm trying to come up on the other set. but I can't seem to work the VFO. I've got 145.275 if it's convenient. It'll be interesting to see if it works.
275.
But that's not your hi-fi line, is it?
It is. I can change it. I'll go and adjust it. Just hang on a second. You talk to the others.
How was the party, Steve?
Oh, it was good. Yes, I went as Lyn Bedell. It was an There was a fancy dress party.
Yes.
And we had to dress up in sort of Australian explorer, as Australian explorers or.
Very good.
So
Very good.
I found a shirt in the cupboard from 1945, an old army shirt, and put my my shorts on and my boots, and put a Cuba hat on and some binoculars around my neck. And that's the way I went.
Very good indeed.
It was good. Yeah.
Was there a preponderance of any particular explorer that was chosen by the others?
Yeah. Well, sort of Australian iconic, icons, and a lot of people.
Yeah, like James Cook or Normie Rowe or someone like that.
A few James Cooks and.
No Normie Rose.
No Normie Rose. No entertainers. I should have got an entertainer.
And did people know about Lyn Bedell?
No one even knew his name.
I know, isn't that terrible?
They didn't even know who he was.
He spent 6 years building the Lyn Bedell Highway, and no one cares.
I championed the cause of Lyn Bedell. Talked about surveying and bored people crazy.
Yeah.
And yes, that's the way it went.
Now that frequency's open if you want to.
Okay. Well, look, I'll come back on that and see if it works.
145.275 was it?
Yes, 145.275.
Okay. Well, we'll stand by. But Talky's working very well, of course.
Yes, it is. That's a standby if this doesn't work.
Yes, that's right.
Let's see what happens.
So it's good to have standby coverage. So, and it's got super fine emitters too now, which is good. So we're listening on that frequenza 145.275. Yeah. Oh, yes, there you are.
Hello, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yep.
All right, that's sort of working, isn't it?
It's a bit overdriven.
Okay, I'll back off.
Mm-hmm.
Back cut off. Is it? No, it's still overdriven, isn't it?
A little bit.
Bit?
Yeah.
Okay, is that better? Hello, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah, that's sort of okay.
Sort of okay-ish.
Yeah.
I can come back a bit further.
Go forward a bit.
Okay, forward. It's a little bit tetchy. This is the first time. Yeah, I'm using this setup.
There's a bit of hum there. Yeah.
There is a bit.
Yeah.
It's not ideal, is it?
It sounds like an RF getting into the mic or something.
It possibly is because it's all in the sort of same area.
Yeah,
Okay.
it seems to be more power. It's not hissy like the other emitters. I think the other emitters are stuffed.
Oh, okay.
It's,
Oh, yes, the other one.
Yeah.
I'm using a different antenna. I'm using this is the antenna on the main part of the house, which I use to receive Frank on Fridays.
Right.
But
it's a much better signal than the other antenna.
okay, interesting. Because the other one is lower on the block, and there's a couple of McMansions which sort of box it in,
Right.
and I think that's a part of the problem. But it does sound a bit hummy, doesn't it?
Apart from the hum, it's excellent. Can you drop the power a bit?
I can.
That might stop the RF.
It could. I'll back off a bit. I don't know how to do this yet. I'm still learning. Oh, can we just leave it as it is? Because if I start mucking around with it, I'll lose it.
Okay, well, it was just you could come back on Talky, I suppose.
I think it's ironic, isn't it? Talky's sort of an easier option.
Well, I think it's you'd be okay on that if it didn't have the hum.
Yeah, unless I use a different microphone. But I'll turn the mic off. No, it's still there.
So it must be getting into the mixer.
It must be getting into the system. Systematics. I can try and move things around a little bit here. Because there's a transformer coupled and everything. So you'd think that would be all right.
Yeah.
I don't want to stuff around with this.
You'll need to do more testicles.
Well, look, I think we will. We'll resume tests, and then I'll come back on Talky, and it's a bit more comfortable for everyone, I think.
That's right. Yeah.
That's all right. We're testing things on the fly.
I think the 2 meters actually more phi, but apart it's got the hum. That's the problem.
Yes, that's that's right. Yeah, okay. Yeah, there's a residual hum issue. Okay, well, we'll just drop off and I'll come back on Talky.
Okay. Good. Well, everyone being on Talky has certain advantages, which we won't go into. So there we are. Yeah. So we'll wait for Steve to come back on Talky-O-Matic. And, yeah. So Noel seems to be having a good time. No one's come into his room and annoyed him?
No, not yet.
No, they're all asleep now.
Oh, good.
And overnight nursing.
Ah.
It's good that you've got a room on your own. You wouldn't be able to do this, Noel.
I was tempted to try Box Hill tonight, but I got shanghaied here. But I wouldn't have been on my own, unfortunately.
Oh, you would have been so popular, waking everybody up.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, they wouldn't have stood for that.
No. So I think.
Well, here we be.
Right now we've got Noel on the line from Alfred.
Okay.
And Jeff and Frank.
Great.
Now, a bit of a warning. I'm using the old Optus system because they never turned it off after we cancelled their contract.
Oh, right. You've kept that going.
And it's working as best it's ever worked. Now, it does drop out every couple of hours, so if you go off, just wait and I'll go inside and connect it up.
I'll understand what's going on. So there's been no resolve about the NBN.
It's just back to the future. Absolutely incredible.
Groundhog Day.
I can't believe the contempt for customers that they expect a week with no phone or internet is perfectly okay.
They don't care. There's no consciousness about this sort of thing.
No, and look, I used to complain about Mumbai, and they were pleasant enough until they hit a brick wall, then they would do nothing. Now, Aussie, they're very pleasant, and when I said, look, this is just not good enough, I want a refund or whatever, they hit the brick wall and nothing we can do about it. It's beyond our control.
They've got a line in their little book. They turn to brick wall, page 17.
That's right.
And they look down to paragraph 3 and they just read it out to you, and that's their line.
You drop your level about 5 dB. You're just distorting a bit there, Steve.
I'm sorry. I'll come back.
It's absolutely pathetic. And like he said, the guy's going to come on the 5th of August. I said, well, that's 3 days without the phone and internet. I said, I'm running a business here. And he said, well, that's the best we can do. And it's just unbelievable. What other consumer thing?
You know what? In the fine print, in the thing that you signed, there'll be a paragraph about 10 paragraphs down.
Yes.
You have to get your electron microscope out to read it.
Yep.
And there will be some disclaimer that lets them off the hook.
Exactly. I think what's going to happen, if it's not resolved this week, I'm going to say, look, you resolve this or put me through to the accounts department, I'm cancelling, and I'll go to
But the problem is an NBN issue, isn't it?
It is, but the thing...
No matter who you're with, you'd have the same problem.
Apparently, Telstra has more clout.
But Telstra, the NBN, the Aussie broadband runs on the Telstra platform, doesn't it?
No, I don't know whose platform.
It runs on Telstra.
Does it? But Telstra would get priority than Aussie. Aussie hangs off Telstra.
Well, there may be a triage there, but I think you'll find that any Telstra customers are probably having the same problem.
Well, next door's on the NBN. See what happened when they turned the NBN off all day on Wednesday or whatever last week, which I thought was pretty bad. An email said NBN's going off between 8:30 and 4 o'clock in the afternoon, 8 hours, no phone, no internet. It went off at 8 o'clock. Next door's on Telstra. They went off as well. At 4:30, it came back on next door. It stayed off and has been off ever since on my line.
But next door's on.
Next door's on.
Yeah, I reckon it's to do with that new node they put in for you. They probably haven't reconciled it properly.
Look, it's just somebody typed the wrong thing in the thing.
Yeah, that'll be it.
Or an exchange problem, maybe.
Yep, and I just thinking, well... Couldn't they? It's almost essential service. Nor in the old days they'd say, "Look, we'll ring up the exchange, see what's going on, get someone to fix it." But now, and this is the worst thing. They said a person has to come around to my house and check the system before they go any further.
They've got to rule out the possibility that it's not your in-house equipment.
And I said, look, it stopped when you did the maintenance. It hasn't come back on. Next door's back on. nothing has been altered here since it was installed. This is the thing. So the guy is coming on Monday supposedly, but I haven't heard got any details.
So you're getting anything? Is anything working on your modem at all?
No, it flashes. It's recycling, trying to find the signals. It goes in about a minute, goes through all the things. Yeah. I went through this with a guy, and I explained what was happening. I reset the modem, did all the things.
Yeah, the usual thing.
There's just no signal coming in, and it can be resolved in 2 seconds, but it has to go through this protocol. The guy's going to come out here, and he'll say, look, we'll have to send this back and be another week before they get a booking to look at the exchange thing. Then they'll have to come out again. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, and it is unbelievable. It's incredible. Sorry, go on.
Dave, do you have actually fibre to the home, or is it copper?
It's HFC, underground Telstra HFC cable, which we're connected to.
Right, so they have a coupler on the HFC, and then off that magic box, on the HFC.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yep. Okay, gotcha.
So it should be. It was an excellent service up till it stopped. I was getting great speeds. It was. I had no complaints at all.
Look, it sounds like when they were sorting the big problem out, they just didn't reconnect you or something.
And the problem is, you've had no problems, but if something happened to the NBN, it'll be low priority for them to fix it, obviously.
Yes. Well, to be honest, I don't think our system hasn't been flawless. There's been lots of problems. Drops out every day.
Really? Yeah. Well, it's pretty
and
bad.
even with Aussie Broadband, who are supposed to have a even platform.
Optus drops out 2 or 3 times a day.
Yeah. Look,
that's not good.
I
just don't like the fact that I just don't like the fact that you don't know that it's actually dropped at the phone line.
I know you can't rely on the phone line.
But did you have to sign a thing at the start? Because when I established my contract with Aussie BB, they said to me that you have to say that this is a non-essential service. If you want essential service, you have to find another contract. That I have to say that. Basically say that the phone, I could live without the phone.
Look, I had to sign it as well. I assumed it meant the phone could drop out occasionally, and you can't rely on it for emergencies.
But I think if we look at that to the full extension of that argument, it's probably they're protecting themselves through that disclosure.
I didn't think a week is
I know
is
it's
fair.
terrible, but I think that's probably what they're exploiting.
Yeah. Look, I know I've got no legal thing to stand on. I just hope 5G or whatever comes in and makes all these companies go broke. Of course, they're just ripping everybody off, and it'll be ripped off then as well. But at least there'll be more choice. And look, if it wasn't that I'm running servers and stuff, I'd just drop everything and go directly on wireless. But it's a bit hard to run. I want a dedicated line. But it's obviously we're still in the third world. You can't do that in this country reliably anymore.
HFC is really, really bad for data. It is incredibly bad. And why the heck they ever did keep HFC, I do not know.
Yeah.
It's just ridiculous.
Yeah, because it was a lot cheaper.
Well, look, I must admit, up till it stopped, we were getting 100 down and 45 up. I could send a YouTube clip up in about 20 seconds, download, I don't know, never used anywhere near the thing. So that's not the issue. The issue, and they spent basically 6 months in the street, digging up the street, putting a new cable in, doing all, so they've done all the work, and obviously they're still doing work, but I think all the work they've done in a couple of years' time is going to be useless because it'll be out of date and it won't probably be used. But it's it's good to have the redundancy of the at the moment it's got the Optus cable. See, this is putting all your eggs in one basket, as we said.
Yeah. Well, thank goodness your secondary system is up there.
Yeah.
You've got a third system, don't you?
I've got the phone, but see, the only trouble with the phone data, we only get 1 bar of signal here on phones. So it's dicey on voice, and it's pretty useless on.
God, heaven forbid if you had a catastrophe or if you had a life-threatening situation.
Sometimes there's no bars because our nearest cell is.
I wonder you haven't resorted to the tricks on the internet where they use a coffee can for a 2.5 gig, or whatever it is, G type of 3G type of
antenna
amplifying antenna, and just they wrap it around sort of close to or put a plate close to the telephone and boot the signal that way.
Well, you could do that, or you climb the roof, or move. Look, it's like what people have to do in the bush, find a spot. And look, I'll look at the phone now, see how many bars it is. I was going to connect up to Talky via the phone, but the Optus thing's working okay. Where, how many bars? It is, hang on, stupid thing. We are, 1 bar. 1 bar, which is marginal.
That's marginal at best.
It is.
It's not a effective system.
And sometimes it just drops down to nothing.
Well, look, I wish you well next week.
Well,
absolutely.
Yeah. Now we've got Mr. Dr. Newbeck.
Yes, I've just gotten back.
You've gotten back. You've missed all the exciting conversation.
I have. I've only just tuned in. What have we been talking about this
everything,
evening?
The usual things. Yes, the history of the modern world.
We haven't started on the BOCP yet, have we?
No.
We thought we'd save that for you.
I don't think we will tonight. Because we're all on. Everybody's on the IO.
Except me.
Oh.
It's good, isn't
Yes,
it?
it's the best system, really, isn't it?
It is. In fact, I'll just close down all my missions and we'll just talk on this. But then we can't.
We might as well just have a big conversation call on the internet. We don't need anything else.
Well, the trouble is, the people.
That's what gamers do all the time.
But there'd be no broadcast of the inland and the eastlands.
Well,
no, the world. You wouldn't be able to say hello world.
Hello world. That's right. Although we can on Talky. Used to be able to on the feed as well, but anyway, Look, we just did talk about your FM last night. Work. I think it's a way to go. It just sounds so good.
Oh yes, FM. I don't know, Mr. Newbeck. Did you? You probably went around, but I tried out FM last night on 160.
That's terrific.
And it was a good experiment because it seems to have it seems to be a much more effective mode.
No feedies back to your turntables.
Oh, very good. Is that with the system that Dave rigged up that's on a YouTube?
No, look, it's not. Ironically, no. I ended up reverting to the Kenwood TS440S, which I've had here a long time, but I've always been reluctant to use it because I didn't think the duty cycle would suffice with that with that set. But no, it's fine. We did a bit of research and a few tests, and it's worked out really well. So it was a very seamless approach. It didn't take much. It only took a few minutes to set it up.
Yep.
Oh, good. So it's going through the Kenwood now.
Yep.
Yes.
100 watts of FM.
I did tune in briefly on 2 meters. I was listening to it on the way back in the car. We had a bit of a drain missions to a local on bikes, which I'm not accustomed to riding bikes, but I had that listening on the Baofeng on the way back. That was
very good.
Very good.
It's nice to hear that you're
Cycling mobile.
Yeah, in transit. That's
Very
most
good.
excellent. Yeah, but anyhow, look, it's good. I think FM's the way to go.
Yeah.
And by all accounts, I got a great this morning in the letterbox. There was a SD cards in the letterbox from Mr. Fleming, who recorded part of the missions last night locally, and sent me a file. So I had to listen back. He slope detected it.
Right.
And very good.
The slope sounds better than AM here. If you've got the right receivers.
You'd want a wide band, wouldn't you?
It's interesting. On the super wireless with the wide bandwidth setting, it slopes quite well on the normal bandwidth. You go to wide, you can hardly hear it because it's too wide.
That's enormously wide, isn't it?
It can't. There's no slope to detect it on.
There's no.
Well, I think they short out one of the IS stages.
I think it's got wideband on the cheap.
Yeah, I know.
It's not wideband. It's just no selectivity.
Just partially removes the tuning.
It's like a crystal set. The stations blend into each other.
That's right.
But they are 5. But look,
it's a great way to go. I think FM's the future.
And when you think that's 100 watts in that box, and when I used to test here, the Kenwood here before it went bad, you could wind up to 100 watts, and all the meters here, it's the same readings as the big meters. I didn't ever leave it on too long. I thought it was going to pop, which it didn't. But that's a thing you can pick up on one hand, and look at the meters I've got to get 100 watts. And even
the
that,
footprints.
and even the 807 one, it's horrific. It really is just pretty stupid, isn't it?
That 807 rig is very heavy.
It's almost impossible for one person to carry.
It's about 60 kilograms.
Yep.
And it's heavier than my kids.
Yeah.
But this Kenwood doesn't weigh anything at all. The thing I've got to be mindful of is the power supply. I was reading up about it. The duty cycle is supposed to last for 1 hour continuous at 20 amps. Then you're supposed to let it sit idle for about half an hour before you use it again. I'll try and put
with a muffled fan.
Put a fan that really forces air into the box.
I think if you fanarise them, it makes it all. Well, it seemed to work last night. Didn't pop.
Yeah, because finally it started to smell a bit towards the end. I was getting a bit of a burning smell, and it wasn't sort of overwhelming. It was just a bit of a sort of a hot.
It's not good for it, though, Steve. You really don't want to.
Well, I've just got to be aware of this, and I think the trick is to find some sort of. I went out this morning and to buy a computer fan, but I couldn't find something that sort of fitted the thing. But you can get them that fans on a little like a shell that forces the air into a very narrow sort of
like a beam of air.
Beam air wireless.
Something like that might be the way to go.
Yeah.
Use them.
Look, at the Fest, I've got some really big supplies here, which I got Fest for about $2. People just throw them out, big and heavy. You do find them.
Well, look, the last Fest at the one at Werribee, they had about 4 Codan supplies.
Oh, you should have got
for about only about $40 each.
They're
should have bought them.
Yeah, you should have. Look, you can never have too many power supplies, and I haven't got time to fix them. So when they pop, just put another one in. But I've got one here that someone's built, and it's got I think 8 2N355s. It's 20 amps. It doesn't even know it's working. So someone.
But you did pop a few when you were testing.
I did, yeah, but they were minor ones now. Oh look, I got rid of it. I've put a lot of stuff in the wealth distribution system here in the street. Now you are laughing.
The nature strip's been graced with your the spoils of your testing.
You're still a bit loud there, Steve.
I'm sorry.
You're clipping on peaks. Now I was in the booth last night, and I heard this mighty crash, bang, clunk, massive noise. What the hell is that? One of my shelves had fallen.
No.
And about 3 rollers and a Mark IV just fallen on the floor and smashed to 1,000 pieces. Luckily, your Bio Mark 1 and the 66, they were on the floor. They're not. They're on the floor on books, so if it floods, they don't get wrecked. They're still pristine. And they smashed. I thought, well, they bent. The meters smashed. Amazing. Just that 6-foot fall, they're totally wrecked. Their chassis are bent.
Rollers?
Yep. So I just pulled them to bits and went up and down the street, just depositing them on people's junk piles. They've all gone.
Very good.
They've gone.
Very good.
People don't know what the hell they are, but
no.
Probably scrap metal or something.
Well, that, or they might be trying to connect them up to the power or something.
They might. So all those, I've got rid of a few rollers, which is good. And I could have put them on eBay for $5,000, but I couldn't be bothered.
No, with the time it takes, people don't realise that, the time it takes to describe something, monitor it.
Take a photo.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then get rid of it, and then package it up or have to meet someone or deliver it. It's not worth it.
Look, if I had taken one over to Japan, I could have sold it for big money. But I don't think it would fit in the overhead luggage.
Well, it's not the sort of thing you put in an overhead.
No, that's right.
You'd arouse a lot of suspicion on the way, I think.
You would. So it's good to get rid of stuff. And I looked in my shed. I looked down the thing and think, this is just chaotic. This is just, to me, I'm used to it, but to anyone else, they just think this is just crap. Just shit. 90%, look, there's some good stuff here, and the boxes of components are good. You're always using those and transformers and stuff, but most of it is absolute shit and should just be in the wealth distribution scheme.
Fair enough.
And I didn't even think of going to the HRS say auction. I don't want more shit, And there's nothing there really interesting. Just old, Bakelite. Empire State Building receivers mostly.
I was going to ask if you went to that.
No, I didn't.
I heard from Mr. JIA when I was testing this afternoon, and he went along and he said the Empire State went for 8K.
What?
Oh. Now that's what fell off the shelf as well and smashed. No wonder it got picked up off the non-burnable rubbish.
Probably Anthony's done it.
Yeah. There's one thing I was interested in. I would have bidded for that broadcast carbon microphone.
Yeah. How much did it go for?
I saw that.
Yeah, it went for 150. That would have
That's
been a
cheap
bargain for one of those ABC mics.
I would have got one of those. I would have paid for that.
Pretty historic, isn't it?
Yeah,
we would have been bidding against each other there.
Yeah, that would have been $300. I know we would have made a deal. But look, there's lots of things here, like say the amenity receivers. They're nice, they look good, but I've done a video on them. Do I really need them anymore? They take up a lot of space. I'm not going to listen to anything on amenity receivers.
Oh,
I mean,
have a museum shelf.
Yeah, but what do you put in it though?
Just to stack the things there. It's something to look at. It's eye candy. It's thermal mass. Keeps you shack warm. That's what I do here. I don't need to use a heater because I've got so much junk piled up on the wall.
So many valves.
And it all sort of seals the place off and keeps it warm because there's so much thermal mass.
Yeah.
It's just a layer. But, you get it off the floor, you get it out of the way, you make it work, and you just put it on the shelf.
Yeah, look, I suppose so.
It's a work of art, that amenities receiver.
It
tells a story. It's a part of it's what the common person would have experienced.
But people
you think it takes you back to the war.
But people can look at it in 4K and be like being in there. Maybe could do a virtual reality tour when they have them.
Yeah, maybe. In the future we'll have holographic images of all
you can walk through the valves.
We can really, be up and close and personal with it all. But, I'm pleased I kept my Lyn Bedell shirt. I'm wearing it now, 1945.
You never know when you're going to need a Lyn Bedell shirt.
I bought the shirt when I was a teenager, and it's been in the cupboard for the last 40-something years.
Yep.
For 40 years, and I don't think I've ever worn it, but I wore it tonight.
Oh.
So I've got it on now, my Lyn Bedell shirt. It's got 1945 stamped on the back.
Well, that's a great lesson, Steve. The moral is don't throw anything out ever.
Is it khaki?
No, I think you have to rationalise.
I'm afraid you do.
Yeah, and you have to make your place livable, and you have to work. It has to be workable, livable, and you have to make that compromise between what's functional, what's museum, and what's creative, and all those sort of things. That's a personal decision.
Yeah,
I unfortunately suffer from the syndrome of looking at something and thinking, I'm going to throw this out. No, I'll just keep it.
Look, all the
I
stuff.
Just end up keeping it.
All the stuff I've thrown out. It actually, you forget about it. You don't even know. You don't even care anymore. Once it's gone, it's gone. Although I must admit,
depends on the value it has to you.
Like I kept the Kenwoods, which I thought, well, that's probably a good idea because you do need components and little things like that, pots and resistors and things. I think are important, but the big
well, you have to have a vision of what your projects are going to be or what your interests are, and things that might suffice that. Like the Kenwoods obviously were useful because they provided a PA for FM edits and things. Whereas if you chucked those out earlier, you probably would have been wanting it.
Yeah. Look, they're great things. Don't throw a Kenwood out because the PA is really great. And
Codans are useful for bits.
Codans are great. I'd never throw them out. That PA stages are really good on those, and you can get your big power out of it.
But I think for museum stuff, you do have to rationalise, and you have to. You don't want it to encroach upon your workspace and your own creative endeavours. I think
that's right. Yeah.
Yes.
I think that's the problem. We might have a little 2-minute segment from Mr. Bedell, because he's always interesting. So here's what he's got to say.
Good. Let's have a listen.
Yeah. So I have to press that button there. There we are, and we'll hear Mr. Bedell, and see what he's got to say.
When Dr. Penny and his British team arrived at Emu Field in South Australia for the first mainland tests, there was not a fish and chip shop in sight. Just Lyn Bedell, his Land Rover, and presumably the cameraman who captured this footage.
See a motel anywhere.
He was handed a bush hat, and Lenny set about making camp.
Dr. Penny was walking around looking, and he's looking into the black mulga scum. He couldn't see a motel anywhere. And he came over to me when no one was around, and he put his hand up and he said, "Where am I going to sleep tonight, Lyn?" He was very anxious. And I said, "There, right there." And I pointed onto the ground. Right there. So I found out a long time before this, if these sort of people ever ask you a question, these type of people, they ask it because they want an answer straight away.
The Aussie bushman and the Pommy nuclear scientist became the best of mates. The relationship seemed to reflect the genuine affection between Australians and the British in the 1950s.
And after a week, he said, it came to me scratching his head, and he says, "Why have I got to sleep where you tell me every night?" And I said, "Well, I had to think out a reason for it." I said, "Well, because you can see the ground when it's blowing the sand along the ground in this direction. And that little line of salt bush is going to block that sand, and you won't have to empty out your ear in the morning." And he said, "Oh, I see, there is no reason for it." "Oh, yes."
Not bad, is it?
So I had no more worry with him from there on. He knew there was a special
I love it.
reason behind it.
Yeah. So that's
While
quite...
the construction of...
Yeah. So it's quite brilliant, isn't it?
He knew there was a special Australian reason behind it.
The salt bush.
I love his rationale.
Yeah.
Oh, wonderful.
Why aren't there more people like that around?
That's right.
That's wonderful. That's great material.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you see, Mr. Penny is a real pom. If you've seen the film, yeah.
Yeah. Oh well,
yeah, they must have shared a lot of confidential material as well. Those two, when you think.
Oh,
of the,
they would have.
So.
Well, in his book, he said they brought him into the office. Said there's a project coming up, and if you basically leak anything out of it, you get shot. Basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Goodness me.
Yeah. High stakes.
High security.
Poor Mr. Lyn.
Yeah.
Yeah, so...
I'm looking forward to having a trip along the Lyn Bedell, the Ann Bedell Highway one day.
That's right, vibrations, that's right. Yes, like driving across the railway line, the corrugation city. And I like the sign at the start. It says, no services or habitation for next 1,700 kilometres.
Oh, crikey.
Frightening.
Yeah.
Incredible, isn't it? There are a few places on Earth you'd have that sort of disclaimer, would you?
And it says, high ground clearance vehicles only, take HF radio or sat phone.
Not many places invite you to take an HF radio.
No, that's right.
That's right.
The sign's a bit old now. Probably just says take an iPhone 5 and you'll be right.
Yeah.
No, you wouldn't.
No, you wouldn't. There's nothing out there. Nothing out there at all. So yeah, no, it's an interesting little trip.
Yeah, it'll be fascinating to do that one day.
It'll be sealed by the time you go out there in motels and everything.
Oh God, I hope not. I'll wear my Lyn Bedell shirt.
That reminds them of what was.
Shirt.
Yeah.
A shirt that doesn't have buttons all the way down. The buttons only go down to halfway.
Right.
And it's
okay.
they used to do things differently back in the old days.
They did.
Did Bedell map the entire range out at like Woomera and those sort of places?
He was basically the surveyor. He surveyed the Woomera. That was his first job, I think, was to survey the site at Woomera. And he did the same thing at Emu. And he had a camp. He spent like 6 months or a year there. And last few times I've been there with Don, we've traipsed up the mountains and things, and we've gone up probably where no one's been since Lyn Bedell, and you can still see his marks and bits of pegs and stuff he's put up there.
That's marvellous.
And
incredible.
You can see vehicle tracks because they seem to last a long time. That probably date back to the 1950s or whatever.
Like the moon lander.
It is just like the moon landing. We saw one of those aluminium tags they put on the survey poles. It's got Lyn Bedell written on, just lying on the ground. So he walked all around there, and he's got various little survey points. Don's got all the original survey maps. He went to the UK library or whatever and got a special secrecy thing and got a lot of the documents that haven't really been available to the public. So he's got all the guff on that. which is quite interesting. So you walk,
that would have been interesting.
It was, yeah. So
because you were looking for. Sorry, go on.
It was certainly a long range because they were testing the old Blue Streak rockets there.
Oh, yeah.
Were indeed.
It went from Woomera to Talgarno, which is up on that 90-mile beach between Port Hedland and Broome. It was like one of the longest overland rocket ranges in the world.
Yes, yeah.
And all along the road up there, like every 25 miles, there's a peg and a post, and it's probably Lyn Bedell or his mates have put all that up.
Wow. And
so a lot of some of the original Lyn Bedell stuff people have pinched, but I went up there, in the 1990, whatever it was 1990, I think. And I've got video of, well, not particularly good video, but videos and slides of the original plaques, which is quite good, dating back to...
Is there a noticeable change to that area in more recent trips?
Oh, look, sometimes it's green, sometimes beautifully green and looks lovely. Other times it's burnt and parched. It depends on.
But in terms of the original artefacts of things, is it deteriorated or changed?
I think some of people have ripped off for some of the original signs. They've put, make believe, trying to put up other ones to compensate. But it's not the same as the original sign. I've got the other ones that I've got slides of the actual the real thing, stamped by Lyn Bedell. So and the original signs, a lot of those have been replaced because I suppose it's almost 30 years since we did it, so it's a long time's happened.
50 or 60 years since he was there.
That's right, yeah.
Or more.
Yeah.
Yes.
You did quite a bit of outpost research, didn't you, with Don when you were there?
We did, we did a big research there about being out to
because they monitored the nuclear blast from outposts at sort of strategic points.
They did. They built little towers, little poles for the monitoring of the radiation and the flash, and also they calibrated them, and the sort of part of the sensors and the poles and the batteries and the racks are still sitting out there.
Is the radiation all dissipated by now?
Yeah, it's not much above what it is here.
It's good.
Well, most of the area, it's just normal, natural. For about 100 metres around the ground zeros, it's a bit higher, but it's not.
Not a worry.
It's 1 or 2 times more than normal.
That's okay.
And sometimes I took a Geiger counter, and you're walking around that goes high. It's just a quarry. It's just natural radioactive rocks. That's causing.
Yeah, you've got uranium in them.
Yep. And sometimes some roads are more radioactive because they've quarried them from a place that's got radioactive rocks. But this is just well within the normality. You can make it scream like that video I've got where I go up to the thing. That's what because it was set to make it look dramatic. That's right. Look.
So when they cleaned it up, did they really? Was it a real clean-up operation, or was it just sort of a?
No, they bulldozed big holes and just bulldozed all the metal and stuff into the hole.
But they didn't take a metre of soil away or do anything.
No, they didn't do that. They scraped around. They scraped the soil around ground zero to get rid of all the glass. The sand's turned to glass. But in 20 years, it's all come up again. It's just, just like trying to...
A layer of it.
Yeah, it's just... You're never going to get rid of it. And then for kilometres out past... No one ever goes out past the actual towers, where the towers were. There's all bits of tower that were blown off and bent. They had a diesel engine running to keep to power up the bomb and all the electronics underneath the tower. And that, of course, got blown up when the bomb blew up, and we found the bent crankshaft and bent pistons and bent bits of this big, massive diesel engine. So you can imagine the diesel engine's revving full speed, gets hit by the blast, thrown up in the air about 1,000 feet, 10,000 feet, then still revving and lands on the ground. You can imagine no wonder all of the crankshafts are bent.
Oh, golly.
It would have been a terrific sound recording, wouldn't
It would have been.
Yeah. So it was. So these things weren't vaporised. They just sort of just dispersed.
It was a fairly small bomb. So the top of the tower was probably vaporised. The rest of the tower was blown to bits, to smithereens, and bits of it flew all around the place. Now, if you look at that video, the four base points where the tower are bolted on, the bolts are rounded. So obviously, the heat would have been instantly made red hot and slightly melted.
Yeah.
And you can see that it's been pushed sideways with the blast of the bomb. But in today's, it was a pathetic bomb, really. But it certainly
very dirty.
Yeah, they're pretty dirty bombs. So yeah, it's interesting to see. Look, to stand where a ground zero's been and see actually the tower foundations that were still there.
It's good to sort of myth bust this a little bit, because I think there's a lot of...
There's no crater or anything.
The extent of nuclear explosions and what happens. I think far less is vaporised than what people actually expect.
Yeah, I think, look, it depends on the size of the bomb. Like in the Japanese bombs, it was really a few hundred metres around that got vaporised. The rest just got smashed and burnt and pushed away, and
and it's that shock wave.
Yeah.
I know that when they did that explosion on the Montebello Islands, they put the bomb in the hold of a ship, the Plim.
Yes.
And you see the explosion. It looks like it's all iron oxide, as if the ship's been vaporised. But Don was saying that most of the ship is either still there or it was just blown apart.
Yeah.
And it actually didn't happen the way that people expect.
It's amazing that they've got old ships and they're up halfway up the thing, and the wave just
bits of ship blown up in the middle of the island.
Yeah.
Lifted into the sky and dumped.
It's a remarkable thing. Look, I suppose it's fairly... look, it's an interesting subject, and it's amazing the world has survived. It hasn't. We've still got buttons on. That people can press buttons and blow the world up now. It isn't so. They're more worried about, which I think are more or less important things. Nuclear buttons. If someone accidentally pushed one, it could stuff the world up big time for a long time.
You bet.
We had a nuclear sub visit in Auckland Harbour many years ago.
Right.
And I'm standing there listening to the guy chatting in the torpedo room, leaning against a 10 megaton warhead.
Oh my God!
Gosh! It sort of gave me the heebies afterwards. After he told me, he said, "You know what you're leaning against, mate?" That sort of thing. And,
incredible.
Sir, did you know what you're leaning against? And I said, no. He says, well, that thing there can go 10 megatons.
Dear.
Oh dear, yeah.
Yeah, it's a bit scary.
Well,
they had it actually ready to load into the tube. They had the submarine was pointing out at sea, and they were fully ready to use it if they were attacked.
It's the next frontier, isn't it? It's all submarines now.
Well, New Zealand obviously went ballistic when they found out about that themselves. They found out that too many of the weapons were pre-armed on the ships,
really
on the American
ready to go. It could have blown up Auckland.
Easily.
It's look. All you need is a bit of data from Northwest Cape. Send bomb, it would just happen.
Yep.
They get the telegraph thing printed, read out, we've got to bomb Auckland, or, imagine if the data corrupted from Northwest Cape.
Maybe someone on their bow fang
That's right. Just
put out a spurious signal.
Can you imagine?
Play with the data.
Someone, could just go with an oscillator up to the Navy Yard when the subs are in, just send, random data, see if you trip the code. And you see a big thing
fire out. There's been a few instances of that, hasn't there?
Yeah, it's a bit scary.
A very close shave, especially in the 80s. There was one high alert with a weather balloon, wasn't there, over Russia somewhere or something?
Yep.
Correct, yeah.
That's right, that came very close.
We could have been all blown to smithereens or have nuclear summer. So all the
Pretty
testing.
sobering subject, isn't it?
It
but,
is.
It would be extraordinary being out there at ground zero. I think it would be an amazing experience just to sort of be in that zone.
Yep.
And just contemplate the forces of nature that
I know.
occur.
Yep. Yeah.
It's a pity. It's just a pity that the guys who watched the explosion, many of them got secondary infections in their older years.
Yes.
With the radiation result.
Yeah.
A lot of leukemia, I think, as well.
Yeah.
That's
Yes.
right,
They
yes.
didn't understand it all that well.
No.
Yeah.
There was a lot of misunderstanding, wasn't there, with the many tests?
If they were just big bombs, it wouldn't be so bad.
Many of the tests that were done out on the EMU tests were transferred back to, the results were transferred back to Britain and used in what they called the rotor system, which was small underground bunkers that monitored if a nuclear blast went off in London, where the fallout would go, in various cities anyway, and what the survivability rate would be, and so they could get their country back together again in England. Not that there would be a hell of a lot left, if I can imagine if something like that went down.
Oh, look, all those old, movies about what to do after a nuclear attack, and it's just pointless because you're just dead. Well, you're going to be dead in a week. It's just...
I mean, the whole society is just completely fall apart.
Exactly.
Even if you survived the blast.
And
no
considering
water, no
what
food.
Chernobyl did, considering what Chernobyl did, there wouldn't be a hell of a lot of survivors.
No, that's right, and that wasn't even a bomb. So I think, it's just to show, it's just publicity. It's not that bad. Just hide under your table, and you have a few cans of baked beans for a few days, and then you can go out, and everything will be just normal.
Go out and go back to work.
Yes, that's right.
Mind you, those films of Germany after the war, when the city, some of the most extraordinary footage I've ever seen.
Goes for miles and miles.
Yeah, you see Berlin completely flattened, yet there's people going up and down the streets where we're in a situation of utter carnage.
Yep.
And I think it's just staggering. And when you think, how do these people operate? What are they doing? Where are they going?
There's nothing to go to. There's
nowhere to go, but they're going about their business in their suits and ties, and yet all the buildings on both sides of the street forever. And remember that film colour film, where they go up. I think it's an American military film, and they go up on the plane, and it just gets bigger and bigger, and you get this sort of expanded view, and the city's gone. It's completely erased. There's nothing of Berlin standing virtually.
Exactly, and it's sort of, you look at it now, and there's no evidence of it.
No. It's extraordinary.
Like it's been totally rebuilt in 40, 50, 70 years.
Yes.
And, look,
it's particularly strong because it's a colour film and it's a high-res film, so it's got that immediacy about it.
Like there's nothing standing. Where are people going to go? Cook or sleep or work or, it's just like...
One of the things in visiting places like Berlin, that they used to have the flak towers during the Second World War. One of the flak towers in the Tiergarten is nearly buried under just the rubble from all those buildings. They mounted it all up.
There's a big mountain.
Mountain.
Right.
Yeah.
And
there's a virtual mountain, isn't there?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
That big forest park that goes for miles, in Berlin, it was just dead trees. Everything had been shot out, like they'd been fighting there for weeks, and just all the trees were just blown up. It just looked like Ash Wednesday, and that was just through guns and bullets, and just everything just denuded. And the Reichstag building. Look, I must admit, going to Berlin, looking at the Brandenburg Concerto Gate, the Reichstag building, all these, they're just so historic. Like it's just all history there, and to know, like, to see it today is just an amazing thing,
So tell me, Dave, if you go up close to those buildings, can you see where the bullet mark? I mean, because those buildings are shot out. They were shells, and they look so profoundly damaged.
Yeah. Now it's interesting.
Can you see that? Can you see how they've patched it up?
Yeah. Look, they've patched up a lot, but they've left some just to
remind people.
Yeah, and there's a few buildings in Berlin that have bullet marks and quite big shell, craters in them. And that big monument in the middle of the park, you can go up. It's all marble and everything. It's still got it's full of machine gun. They were trying to blow it. The Russians were trying to knock it down, and it's got machine gun things and shell holes and stuff in it. That's still quite. I found it quite fascinating to see buildings that still have the scars of World War II, because a lot of the buildings were knocked down because they were too bad, but some that were refurbished still have some of the stuff. It's in the steps and all over the place. Yeah.
Well, back in the days of the Cold War, some of those buildings used to be on the east side. Used to be used for the Stasi secret police.
Right.
They used to hang out in those in what were once Nazi occupied buildings. And today, you can still see where the swastika has been pried off.
Really.
But the eagle feathers are still there from the from the rest of the flag.
Oh, really?
Oh, gosh. Yeah, it's still there.
That is amazing. Yeah.
Very amazing.
Yeah, the World War II history, because when I was a kid, all you ever saw on TV or the newsreels was people marching under the Brandenburg Gate and the Reichstag and Berlin being bombed and the airlift and all this and the East Berlin, and it's probably one of the most historic things for Western civilization, I think, that city.
I went to actually, and I visited Auschwitz on a tour, and in the the 70s, and before they did a lot of restoration and cleanup of and made it more touristy.
Yep.
And everyone sees in movies, they see Auschwitz 1. They never do the next camp on, which just goes for bloody miles.
Really?
It just is so big. I've never seen anything like it. This inhumanity to man was just insane. It was just nuts.
Yeah.
So that must have been so haunting, Jeff. It must have been
Yeah, well, wherever you stood, you were sort of crunching over someone's bones or ash.
Absolutely.
It's really spooky. It's
I
really
think so.
spooky.
I mean, I don't know how I'd cope with that, to be honest. That would be a pretty...
I went inside one of the remaining buildings there that was used as a gas chamber in a small way. It was on a low scale, but the walls.
They only killed 10,000 people.
Just the sick ones. They just knocked off the sick ones, and the walls are still blue from the cyanide. Chuck it in from the side. But it had this vibe to it, and it was. I think I walked out of the gates, and I had tears in my eyes when I left.
I could understand that.
I read this book a couple of years.
Not easily, that's for sure.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. I don't cry easily over seeing war situations, because I've seen a lot of it, and I've seen a lot of carnage in my life. But that was something else.
Oh, it would have been. That would have been incredible. I can't even imagine. It's profound.
It's almost too horrible to think about. I read this book recently. It was called The Tattooist of Auschwitz, and it was written by this Jewish guy who'd been taken prisoner, and they decided to put him to use, and he was tattooing the numbers on the other prisoners. And he tells the story of how all the tricks and stuff that he had to do, but he did survive, and finished up marrying his sweetheart, whom he met in the prison camp, and they came and settled in Melbourne and lived there for 40 or 50 years.
You can see now. You can probably see why the Jewish folks there that survived wanted their own country and didn't want anyone to mess with them ever again.
Yeah.
The Russians took a fearful toll on the German people when they did take over, and exacted their price of vengeance on them for many, many years. In hindsight, so it was horrendously destructive. Overall.
Yeah, how the society has recovered, like it's just such a shock.
They're so resilient, aren't they?
It is. It's
they are on one level, but I think deep memory takes a long time to change.
It really takes new generations to have it work out, I think, work through, Steve.
Yeah, probably because it's still it's still
There's
fairly
one
recent.
book that I read that covers it really well, and that's called Mouse by a guy called Art Spiegelman, and it's a graphic novel, and I recommend it. Just the sheer volume of that impact. I'll also apologise if you hear any of my murmurings. I'm actually in bed at the moment trying to speak quietly.
So am I, actually.
The YL sort of getting a bit bothered.
Yeah, look, it's interesting. I've seen the gas chambers and the barbed wire fences and the rooms they used to go in for the showers and stuff. But look, it is it's pretty bad.
It's very stark, I imagine.
Yeah, it's
it is.
And you're actually standing in the room where probably over a couple of years, maybe 100,000 people died. It's just it's just too much to comprehend.
It's pretty horrifying.
You see, like the firing squad places and so on, and you see the bullet marks on the walls where some poor bastard got chopped. Some it's just sad. It was just sad what humans can do to each other. The problem is they don't learn. They keep doing it. They did it in Croatia in recent times, and now the Israelis are kind of turning it around on the Palestinians, and it all goes to hell in the handbag, I think.
Well, look, the human race. Remember that genocide in the Tutsis in Africa?
Rwanda and those places.
That was Rwanda.
Quite.
I remember
exactly.
There was a very good Four Corners report with that very good reporter. They had a lot of and he's walking down the road, dusty road, and all these people are walking up, and there's just kids like 1 year, 2 year old without their parents have been shot, and they're just walking in rags up the road. And he says, I never thought I would ever experience a Holocaust, but this is one. And it was just terrible. Just all he could see were displaced people starving, limbs chopped off, just trying to walk up the road to go somewhere, probably nowhere.
Yes.
And the rivers are full of people's bodies just running red. I mean, and that's just a massive thing, but because Africa wasn't quite as big as a European thing, but it was just terrible. One group of people decided, we don't like these other people, and just slaughtered them.
There doesn't seem to be any end to the lengths that people are going to go when they decide to work a hate up on it.
And
the culmination of all of that, of course, is having one weapon that does the whole thing in one go.
That's the worry, Jeff. That's the big worry.
Well, if it was just a bomb and not a nuclear, it could be, at least it'd get over quickly, wouldn't it?
It would be.
Bang.
Instead of the suffering.
But everyone gets...
well, the only hope is that in some way that we're perhaps a little bit more accountable, because people record everything, and everyone is a reporter, and everyone potentially...
got their phones that can record everything.
And and I've heard it said that in the last 20 years, it's probably, notwithstanding a lot of atrocities that continue to happen and get reported, but it is actually the most peaceful time, relatively speaking, in human history.
It probably is. Just we see and hear, like in the 1800s, you wouldn't even know there was a war on the other side of the world.
No, and there was always wars in Europe of one way or another, wasn't it?
Exactly, yeah. And it's just the age of media. Like now, everything is reported instantly.
Yeah, I think if people are made accountable, and there's always a shame element, or it's this conflict in human nature, really, that the altruistic side of human nature is a very strong, thing as well. So if we can make people accountable to some extent, they probably will. Stop, or at least try and scale back some of the terrible things that they do.
Well, I think in the long term, the society has got from is less barbaric. It's getting slightly better, over the years.
I'd like to think so, and I've heard it said that that relatively speaking, it's a lot less. Really bad atrocities. Well, there are always bad things.
Pol Pot's not that long ago, really, isn't it?
No, that's right. And
he just slaughtered hundreds of thousands of people.
Yeah, and Chairman Mao, he did the same
he
thing.
did stuff. Stalin, look, he just killed tens of millions of Russians. Like it wasn't even a war; it was his own war. Just anyone who was against him.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, genocide.
Yeah. Yes.
But if people are accountable, if people are made to sort of reflect upon the activity, or if they're paraded or shamed.
Well, now, of course, Stalin would be hashtags against him, and he'd stop doing it.
Well, at least to a greater degree, most of the people here that are involved in the military here do humanitarian things these days and help people rather than try and shoot them down.
Only because there's no war for them to go to.
Yes, yeah.
They'd like a war.
Perhaps so.
I think there's still a big worry about our leaders. We don't seem to have the sense to elect leaders who share this sort of common sense humanitarian approach that the general populace has.
Well, the trouble is you need, appeasement gets you nowhere, really. If you've got one side's, wants to slaughter and kill people, well, and then you're, like the meek don't inherit the world. You have all
that's dead right.
The right values.
True.
They'll just walk over you. That's a problem.
That's the problem, all right.
If it gets to that point, I think now more things are going to be played in, like trade wars and all this sort of stuff, like it's happening now with China and the US.
Yes,
you can hurt them by not actually shooting anyone, just doing trade negotiations.
Different stakes.
You could starve a country to death, I imagine, these days, just by that alone.
You could.
You can bring them to their knees by not trading. No oil, no food, no whatever.
The worry about that is, though, if you do starve them nearly to death, they'll reach the point where they've got nothing to lose,
and they'll shoot.
So they'll drop the big one.
That's right. Or that, as I was saying earlier on, they'll just bug all the IT systems and close a country down like that.
That's right.
Which is easy enough to do. Everything is so centred on the IT. You could put a bug, close down the internet, close down everything, then the whole system would grind to a halt, and in a week it'd be anarchy. Everyone would be shooting each other to get some food.
I've got a PC game that's based on that principle. A certain country builds back doors into equipment, and in the many years on from now, and it's called Fallout 4, and it's after the nuclear bomb has gone off.
Oh, really?
In America, and you've got to survive from zero, from day one in a bunker, and you get out of the bunker, and you've got to survive various mutant animals and various warring tribes of people who have survived but have made their own way in the world, but are very, they'll steal anything, take anything, and sort of do you
We're only one step away from barbarianism, really, in that sense.
Yes.
Look, hopefully people can just go into virtual reality and do all that and not have to do it physically. But look, it's true. I was growing up in the '60s, and I watched On the Beach and all those other films, Doctor Strangelove, and it didn't look. It looked. I thought, well, obviously the world's going to end this way, so I had my little pack of survival stuff, and I bought a 62 set from Waltham so I could communicate if everything went down.
Very good.
And I'd worked out how far I could get on a bike and ride out of the city in 20 minutes, which wasn't very far. I was only down to South Road, but still I thought I've got some survival things. If I'm lying in bed and the big flash comes, I'd jump on my bike in a little pack with the stuff, and I'd be riding down. And so it's very naive sort of thing, but that was the youngsters are impressionable,
very,
and you see enough of these sort of movies, and that On the Beach was a very dark movie, really. And
it certainly was.
Yeah.
Well, I remember in 1962 when the Bay of Pigs thing.
That's
happened.
right, Mr. Kennedy.
I was genuinely scared.
It was probably the closest we've come to a problem, I think.
I think it was.
Yeah, and Mr. Kennedy and Mr. Kay, they got together there, and luckily, I think people of that generation, he certainly was a man of faults and problems, but Kennedy is like the face of that middle 20th century, I think, because he was never old, he never got old, and there's all that, he got, the assassination, the Bay of Pigs, he's promoting the moon, landing. He's just this youthful face.
He absolutely is. He'll be forever. He's the permanent hero.
That's right.
But it's interesting to see the reconstruction of. Actually, there's a lot of footage around of Kennedy at the time of the Bay of Pigs, and all of his military people were advising him to go and take him on.
Exactly, and this is a good thing that. The military people had his ear. They just wanted to get. Well, they want to. That's what they're trained all their lives to do, to blow up.
Yeah, they're wanting a big
war.
Big war.
They want to test out
big war game.
Want to test out their rockets, their tanks. They want to test out the latest control room with a big screen and the button they push. What's the point of having it if you can't use it?
It's like a game, isn't it?
Exercise is no fun.
No, but it is a sort of game for them, isn't it?
It is sort of a game, and I think they've forgotten that there's a whole. The military,
there's humanity underneath all this.
The 95% of people who aren't in the military just want to get along with their lives, not live in a city that's blowing up. And I think it was pretty touch and go. Imagine a weaker person might have said, "Oh yeah, well these people are heavying me, and I want an easy time."
That's right. Well, they know better than I do.
Yeah. So it's good, isn't it, that you don't. In modern democracies, hopefully, the ultimate power is not with anyone military. It has to be vetoed by politicians. As flawed as they are, they probably have other priorities, maybe.
That's right. But you've just got to. It puts a huge responsibility on them.
Yeah.
And you just hope that they're up to it.
Yeah. I mean, there's photos
the stakes are so high. I mean,
of Kennedy in the Oval Office, on the phone during those negotiations. He doesn't look a happy man on the phone. It's obviously the man. He's got the whole world on his shoulders. He did have.
You would be a bit worried, wouldn't you?
He could have. If he didn't negotiate properly, the Third World War could have easily come up.
Probably would have.
Yep. And then we would be still back in the we'd be recovering. Maybe it's be a totally different world.
Absolutely.
So it's interesting. But Mr. K, just that it's I think he'll be in like 10,000 years. There'll still be stuff written about him.
That's it, because what he did has affected history in an enormous way.
Yeah. Most other presidents would be. Forgotten about.
They'll only be remembered in association with him.
Yeah.
Probably.
It's not only just the Bay of Pigs incident either. It's the legacy he left behind with the whole space thing as well. So
we want a man on the moon by 1969 or 1970.
To do things not because they're easy, but because they're hard.
It's a great line.
And then when Fraser said life's not meant to be easy, they canned him.
I know, he's just saying the same thing, isn't he?
Oh dear. Yeah, well, gentlemen, it's about 1:30 down here, and I think
it's about
I'll
2 o'clock here.
That's right.
It's been.
We'll catch you later.
It's been a really good session. I think probably I'll be on next week. Then I'm going at the Lyn Bedell Highway. No, not quite that far, but near there. So I might be off for a couple of weeks after that.
Oh, okay.
But just to see what happens, we'll fill you in. I hope the internet comes back on. Maybe it will, maybe it won't.
Yeah, it will, surely.
Well, yeah, sometimes.
I'm sure it will, but it's...
all you got to do is live long enough, Dave.
Yeah, look, the Optus... If I didn't want to put up YouTube videos and it can have a continuous service that didn't drop out for the stream, it's quite adequate. And
it's worked quite well tonight.
I'm glad it's still there. I'm glad you didn't pull the stuff out. It's still there. and if they send me a bill, I'll say, look, I'm sorry, I've left all the stuff there, someone must have hacked my radio thing, and I didn't do it.
Tell them they stuffed up at the NBN.
Yes, that's right.
I'm surprised their alarms haven't gone off that show that it's being used.
I don't think they even care about the cable. As far as they're concerned, it's a closed system. There's probably one or two people on it. They don't care.
Yes,
I guess that's right.
Removed when they made the transition. It was turned off straight away.
Yeah, it was funny. Well, I think our paperwork's been stuffed up because it took a long time to actually get a. I had kept paying bills even though I'd cancelled. Then they sent me a bill with a refund of the bills I'd paid. So obviously their paperwork's been totally stuffed up. So no one's been sent to turn or type in the thing.
Yeah, somehow escaped the whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What I was thinking would be fun, connect the cable, the Optus cable to the NBN cable, see what happens. Maybe like connecting the water to the gas pipe.
You put the whole system out of operation.
Yes.
It could be interesting.
Blue smoke in the exchange. Yeah, blue smoke in the exchange.
Yes, that's right. Or
anyway,
an RF into the NBN. That's probably.
Put 100 watts of 160 down.
That could be a bit of a backfire.
I think you'd end up. I think we'd be coming to visit you in goal.
Yes.
Would be the proverbial potato in the exhaust pipe.
Yes.
Yeah, indeed.
Okay,
well,
Jeff. We'll see you later on.
And the Beck and everybody else.
Cheers, everyone.
See you later.
Mr. Andrew and Jeff. And Noel, if you're still there, Noel, I hope you get better soon.
Yeah, all the best, Noel.
Yeah, it's good to have Noel on the line.
And Jeff, good to hear you. That's great.
Yeah, likewise.
Come up again.
And we'll spot you later.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Take care, everyone, and all the best, Dave.
Bye. You going too, Frank?
I will go.
Okay, well, look, it's been a great talk.
Yes, it was great night. Yeah. We covered a big range of subjects.
It's amazing. I'm glad it's been a good night.
We didn't even get onto drones.
We didn't. Oh, we'll do that next week.
We'll save them
yeah, because there's regulations coming, aren't they? We'll keep it for later on.
I think so.
And yeah.
All right. Well, great night. So cheers, everyone.
Yeah, it's good. We'll catch up with you soon, Frank.
Yes, all the best, Steve. Talk possibly Friday night.
Yes, hope so.
Frank.
Yeah.
And Dave, take care.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah, all the best, Frank. Have a good week.
Cheers.
Yeah.
Now, what was I going to say? Oh, that's right. I was going to say. Anyway, yeah, it's good. We had a good talk before you came on, and it's worked out well.
Right.
Now,
yes.
This afternoon, I put some tests on 18. In fact, just played back last week's crossband. In the afternoon, I thought, well, it's just playing through a little transistor thing on the desk. It's not like having the whole big emitters humming. It doesn't seem like you're wasting energy, so I just what's the point? Just let it play. No one else is on 160. Just put FM on there, and
yes,
it's maybe I should do just at random times put a couple of hours on just to fill up the band or whatever.
Oh, look, I think it's a good idea to have a daytime service.
Yeah.
So you use the same system. You just ran it with the Kenwood and your signal generator.
That's right.
Yeah.
So what I might do is just get another limiter and just an SD player and just have without having to have the whole booth turned on, just put stuff out, and it's only using about 200 watts the whole thing.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Why not? No, look, it's a very efficient way. The footprint here, it's in proportion to everything else in this booth. Just this tiny little radio, it's doing all of the work.
It is incredible, isn't it?
It is. It's sort of, it's a bit disarming in a way.
Yeah.
They sort of think, it's a little bit too straightforward, but it's a good situation. I'm certainly pleased that this has worked out.
Yeah.
But so the synthesizer noise and everything else, it's not I listened back to that file that was sent to me, and it did sound pretty good. Sounded okay.
Yeah, it sounds great. It's
so it obviously does work. It's a good approach. Not that many rigs have FM. I've noticed that I think there's a Yaesu from about the same period it does,
right,
but and there's a few modern ones that do. But
I think most of the modern ones do.
Yes, I don't know how effective that is. Whether it's where you can patch data in the same
you mean
way.
to transmit? Oh, look, I'm sure they could be hacked.
They probably could be hacked.
Yeah.
Yes. I imagine so. So yes, I suppose there's a fair potential. There's very little written about FM. I was sort of trying to do some searches on the subject, and really, there's not many people have explored. I think in America there was a bit of a move towards narrowband FM in the 60s before single sideband came in.
Yeah.
But
it was to get away from TVI and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's it.
I think, the trouble with the US now, it's banned below 29 megs. So there's no real experimenting on HF with FM because you can't do it. So we're one of the few countries that's allowed to have it.
Yes.
And
so why not?
Yeah.
That's okay. Yeah. Oh, I mean, it's great to be able to have a variety of different platforms and things. But yeah, it's good. But I'll certainly be looking out for a good signal generator.
Well, Ballarat's often good.
You got yours at Ballarat, didn't you?
I did, yeah, a year ago. The Marconi.
You got an absolute bargain with that Marconi.
It has got a fault. One of the digits in the display is always on 8.
Okay.
So
it's nothing in the scheme.
That's why it was probably a bit cheaper. It's got so 1868 is 18. What's okay on 1868 because it's. But if you type in something else, you've got to realise that
you've got to make that adjustment in your mind.
It doesn't matter when you're typing because it hasn't moved up to it. So it's. Yeah, I always look at the keyboard when I'm punching the thing.
Sure, you just edge around it and work it out.
That's a minor fault. The other one, which is not a bad one either, it's got a minor fault as well. It's that one. That only cost me $100, the one with the green display.
That's amazing. You did really well. It doesn't put out 100 milliwatts though.
No.
You're saying that that won't drive the Codan.
It'll drive the Codan. It won't drive the big.
It won't drive the kit.
No, because the Codan you feed at the preamp on the board. It's got a just. But look, you could easily make a little transistor amp or run it through a Codan beforehand or something. And it has a fault. It's not 100% stable in as much that if you heterodyne it with a stable, it goes ooh. It's got a little wobble in its.
Oh, does it? Okay.
It's insignificant, but for a lab unit, it would make it unusable.
For lab use, it would probably be
but
written off.
It's it's a minor fault, and it's worked flawlessly apart from that. So and the fact that you can just turn it on, it's stable from the.
Look, having a synthesized a signal generator is a great thing.
Yeah.
What a difference it makes, rather than having to sort of skirt around the edges all the time.
Oh yes. It's always drifting and.
Yeah, that's right.
Because when you're using a geloso, you can see over time it just creep across the band on the display.
Right. It's always going to surf around, move around. Yeah, I always put that set on, even on a Friday. I used to put it on for at least an hour and 2 hours before, and then just leave the heaters on to warm the thing up a bit. So still, yes, it's always going to drift. I think that's the nature of it, isn't it?
Now, with the signal generators on FM, the trouble is if you're not careful, you can put out 200 kilocycles FM wide signal, which is pretty amazing. And the only thing it's stopping is the tuning of the antenna. And you can go from the broadcast band to 2 megs. It's amazing. It's white. just all this.
So you put in a little tuner.
Yes, I've done that, and it's just this white across the whole band. It's incredible.
Shit. Oh God.
Yes.
That'd be interesting to witness.
Yes.
Use your modulation indexes slightly out of.
That's right.
Out of the ballpark.
And of course, there's nothing pops, nothing makes any noise like a modulator.
No, so you can be doing this.
You wouldn't know,
and you're wiping out the whole suburb.
And it's a really interesting mode because on the SDR, the display is so definite, isn't it, compared to the AM? Like it's really sharp.
Absolutely.
And if it wasn't for the phase distortion problem, it would be the perfect medium. It's just. It's
yeah, absolutely. So I wonder how would it be on 630 meters.
Oh, it'd be perfect. It'd be beautiful on that. Fantastic.
It'd be amazing, wouldn't it?
It would be.
That'd be the thing, but of course we don't have the luxury of the bandwidth to do it, really. But,
no, look, we need. In fact, before we came on live, I had played one of them. When Laurie was on the missions in 2013.
Oh yes,
and we were talking about 630 meters, and he said, look, unless that we get more bandwidth so people can experiment and do stuff, it's never going to take off because not everyone's interested in CW and Whisper. And if we had 20 kilohertz, because there's nothing there, it could be would be amazing band for FM or DRM.
Oh, look, it'd be really exciting. I mean, it would offer all sorts of possibilities. It's but it seems like it's a bit of a closed shop, though, by all accounts. You need a lobby group. You need get inertia behind these things.
I think like the WA, they don't think beyond the box. Oh, it's a CW data.
Well, they don't think beyond what's happening elsewhere in the world, and it seems like in other places it's more of a closed shop than it is here.
Yeah, I think we're very liberal, really, but it seems that they really are stuck in a what amateur radio is about. We've discussed this millions of times, but what's wrong with what we do? Experimenting with different things and talking and crap, and
it's not getting anybody's way. It's
that's
contained.
Right, and doing the networking is very complex, as you know.
Yes, absolutely.
And isn't that part of technical learning and expertise?
Of course it is. Absolutely it is. Yeah, there's no doubt about that. But I just think that people tend to have a very narrow view and a traditional view. It's a conservative sort of thing, I suppose.
Yeah.
And always has been. It's sort of attracted a very sort of forthright, determinate type of person.
But then we haven't had any complaints for years, for 20 years, so obviously people don't care anymore to that extent. As long as everyone's got enough space to do what they want to do, I don't think anyone cares.
As long as it's not getting anybody's way. And so little traffic on, especially on HF, is nothing.
That's right. Yeah, it's a waste to not have stuff on.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you might as well fill up the airwaves. There's very rarely, whenever I look on the SDRs, there's very little activity.
That's right. At least if there's replays, it's something. And the good thing about FM, if someone is close by on lower sideband or something, it doesn't splat and monkey chatter like AM as much. They'd hardly know it's there.
Yeah, that's it. You can be quite contained, and you can even be right next to someone, and it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Whereas AM, you always got that worry about splattering.
Yeah. And the good thing is, like on AM, if you want to transmit audio up to 10 kc, you have to have a 10 kc wide signal, or 20 kc wide. But with the modulation on FM, of course, the level goes down, the deviation goes down, but in a 3 kc signal, you can have response to 20 kc if you want to. If you put up with a low deviation.
Yes.
So if you've got 10 kc deviation, you can have, twice the bandwidth you'd have or twice the audio bandwidth you'd have on AM.
Yeah, it lends itself very readily to hi-fi comms, doesn't it? I mean, it's just the way you calibrate things. But look, it is interesting. It's been great that you took the initiative, because I remember some years ago when I was at Inverloch, you came up on FM when I was listening on the telly radio.
Right.
And that was completely unheard of. That, for me at least, I had no idea that was even sort of in anyone's imagination to do that.
Right.
And yes, I remember listening to. I think it's up on YouTube somewhere.
Oh, you think? Yeah.
And so I remember that on 80 metres you came up on FM.
And what did it sound like?
Oh, it sounded very good. I was able to copy you well. Yeah.
Oh, shut up. Yeah, I'll just have a look at the bandwidth here. So looking at LTW's thing, it's not very. It's 1, 2, 3, 4. The extremes go out to 5 kc either side, so it's only a 10 kc wide signal.
Yeah.
Now, when I'm running AM, it's about 15 or 20 kc wide. It makes a big difference.
It does make a big difference. You've got a smaller footprint.
Yep.
By default, and that's probably not a bad idea, I suppose.
That's right. Now, if I go to the 3670, I don't 3. That's a different story.
Yes, well, that's what happens.
It's
what's always happened.
It's
yes.
It's not very strong, actually. Oh, it's got a crap sleeve, I think. I'll widen it and narrow it or whatever. There on the display. So it's with the clipping, of course, it's at least 15 kc wide. But there's no one on. Who cares?
It's a dead vet. Well, there's very little activity on it. Nothing at this time of the night.
After about 10 o'clock, you can almost have it yourself.
the entire band to yourself.
Yeah, which is good. We live here. Imagine if you lived in the US or something.
Well, I think it'd be a different story. It's a bigger country with a lot more operators and much more competition for use. But no, we are fortunate, and I think it's worthwhile exploiting it.
That's right. Yeah,
if we can, and make good use. But no, it's an interesting one, and it would be interesting to try now. This is sort of if this all sort of works out okay. If to compare, I've got a very different antenna to yours.
Yeah.
But I have a feel. I did have a brief look around on the SDRs the other day, the various Freeman's Reach and others, and I could certainly read myself, but I don't think. I mean, I just never forget being in. See, there's one at Cooma now.
Yeah.
And I received you in Cooma, and I just couldn't believe how strong it was. They were slope detecting. It was so solid. In Cooma, amazing, really, in FM.
Well, lately the Cooma one or the Arellan one has been quite good on 1.6. I'm just dialing it up now. I think conditions were really bad 6 months ago, and FM didn't seem to go into state at all. Now it's not too bad, and if that's listening from Arellan, I put on narrowband FM, and it's actually not too good tonight. Sometimes it's really good. If I slope it, I'll see.
That's very close to Arel. Where that's very close to where we stay.
Is that right?
It is.
Right.
It's really close to where we stay. I think it might even be an adjacent property.
Oh, really?
Yes, I have a feeling it is.
Wow.
So I think there's that's the way I see it. We're 20 kilometres out of Cooma,
right?
And that's the name of the area,
right?
Araluen. So,
well, you'd come on there. I could listen. If you came on from there with a forest phone or something, you'd be back strength on 80.
Yes.
Or maybe not. But seemed a lovely area. It's good he's got that set up.
No, it's one of the better ones now. It is good. Tasmania's a bit iffy.
Oh, it's pretty crap. Yeah, that's right. Paul's is great, but it's just not in a good location, buzz and stuff. Sometimes
he gets a lot of interference, doesn't he?
He does. But
it's not that high.
No.
His antenna's not that high. It's really only 10 metres above the ground.
See, here I've checked what I hear on 160 compared to him. Generally, I can hear stuff better here. Even though we're in the metropolitan area, but the antenna's like 50 feet up. But
see, he's really local to all the coffee break people. That's
that's right. It's hopeless. But then he's probably got his internet seems to be fairly stable, which is good. I wonder what he's got. I should ask him. It seems
it'd be interesting to find out.
It doesn't seem to go down very often.
Yeah, no, he's got very stable internet, so it seems.
But see, he's set himself up. Everyone's listening on Whisper. It's got a lot of listeners. It's almost like it's too big to fail, and he's put a lot of money into it, and extended it. It's like it's a bit of a bind, isn't it?
Yes, it can be. It certainly can be. You're sort of responsible to it.
Yeah.
At some point. Yeah, I know. It's and a lot of people sort of depend on it in one way or another.
They do.
So that's the problem with any of these things. You suddenly become a bit of a slave to your setup. That's the big question you have to ask yourself if you're going to invest in something. And then people expect it to work. I mean, you've had this happen with the missions.
Well, like with the stream, like when it's gone off, I've put a link saying it's stuffed, and I feel like because it's a permanent thing, it reflects on your own, competence because the thing's gone down, but it's nothing to do with me.
That's the problem, and you've obviously got no control over it, but people make those assumptions.
That's right.
And I know that's always a problem. People just jump to conclusions, but it's that sense of agency over what you do, that sense of pride about what you do, that you expect everything to sort of work, and
it really has to be
allow you to express yourself the way you want to.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Otherwise,
a tricky one, but it's very unfortunate. I mean, it's just like it's some like bad dream.
It sounds like it's just come back again.
It's like a really bad dream, like a nightmare.
It is. When they said, "Oh, I have to send someone around," I thought, this sounds like Groundhog Day to me.
Yeah, it does. When you mentioned it, I thought, oh, hello, here we go again.
It might be the same guy.
Yeah, it could be. Oh God! You might find yourself just completely you say the same script.
He's going to come around. He's going to do all the same things, and then going to say,
"Check the pit, and it's not unterminated again."
Yeah. I did check the pit. It hasn't been taken over. I thought that because that does happen sometimes.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Someone will actually just disconnect someone and
yep.
And,
they want a quick fix, and they say, "Oh, there's no spare things. I'll just put it in here," and then I'm off. It's not my problem. It's the next guy's shift's problem or something, you know.
Oh shit, that's terrible.
It happens.
I'm sure it happens.
And it happens in exchanges too. They take the card out and put another one in. And it could have happened to me, like Telstra's just, we haven't got enough. Piss off this Aussie broadband one, and we'll just put ours in and let them worry about it, you know. Because they've got no accountability.
Problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty hopeless. The fact is, the thing that astonishes me, there's no accountability. There's no accountability chain. You can't actually get traction on the issue.
No, you can't.
This is the thing. I mean, it's bloody hopeless.
And as you said, in the fine print, it's very hard to get them on anything.
No, you can't get them on anything at all. You're absolutely hamstrung. And the buck stops with nobody. It just keeps going around in circles. And it's a very common situation with any utility these days. It's the way it works. It's the worst side of private. I know competition and private enterprise is allowed certain things to progress, but this is the worst side of it. That no one takes accountability for anything.
If a company had accountability, you think would be a plus, wouldn't it? That
No, I think they just sort of carry away and just sort of say, "Oh, it's somebody else's problem," and but the very fact that you can't really speak to anyone who has control over a situation, this is the thing, you can't actually cut to the chase.
No, you can't. They just close down.
All these middle people, and this is the big issue, the problem we all have to, that there's no way, you can't sort of ring up. There's in the past you'd have a PMG, probably a department that you'd lodge a complaint with, and that would be sort of action would be sought. But it's the new game.
But like, denying someone access for a weekend, it could be doing business. What about a family and they've got kids and they're going to watch Netflix all weekend? Totally disrupts people's. What about gamers? What about someone going to Skype their grandmother in, Holland?
Yes, that's right. And look, a lot of people have really sort of intense, important family dynamics or, real sort of issues that affect their well-being, and there's an emotional need to have things working reliably. Or people with mental health problems, maybe, who need essential services to assist them with different things, and I think it's really problematic.
That's the interesting thing. Say if you were one of these people who'd signed up, you said you've got an alarm on your phone, a health alarm or whatever. Would they then get the fault fixed?
Of course they would.
Yeah,
absolutely. You'd be triaged very differently. But
so it is possible to fix.
You'd have to pay a lot more for it, or you'd have to go through a different agency, I think. I mean, it might be worthwhile just saying, "Oh, I've got a heart condition. I need essential service. I need this on all the time. What are my options?" And maybe that's the way to sort of balance things.
You could say we can't rely on the mobile phone because it's one bar. That's not good enough here. It could not. Sometimes it doesn't work. I mean, they can just have a look at the phones and see what it is. It's.
But you'd have to go through the ombudsman, or you'd have to go through
too much hassle. That's the trouble. They make it so hard that people give up.
They do. That's the strategy. That's the way they do it. Or they make it just so, the communication's not easy, or the language barrier, or different things, or long queues, or the queues are the things I hate. I just hate queues. It kills me. But we come to expect it now, and we shouldn't have, in this day and age, we shouldn't have phone queues.
No.
You shouldn't have to wait for 45 minutes.
They want everyone to do it online, that's the thing. But it's not the same.
It's not, of course, absolutely not. I mean, there are a lot of, nuances and things that you can't work out online.
Yeah. And it's not the same thing. You can't tell what the other person's, not what they're saying or what they're thinking really. So I've gone on those online chats. They're pretty hopeless. You get onto them quick, but it's probably somebody in Mumbai anyhow, just on a computer instead of a phone, and it's, I don't know. It's so impersonal.
It's not the sort of communication avenue that's going to allow for you to get into any depth.
Yeah.
It's always going to be a bit superficial, I think.
And I always make a typing mistake and to go back on a word and all sort of stuff. It's just,
that's frustrating too for yourself and for and for it's just, I don't think it's an effective way to work. I think a lot of younger people use those sort of chat forums and things, but certainly that wouldn't be my preference.
No, I like to speak to somebody.
It's better to speak, yes, it is. Anyhow, but good luck with it all, Dave. I hope it all resolves itself.
Yeah, well, it'll resolve in the end, but it's look, as I say, it's a third world problem. The world could have been blown up by the atom bomb, and we could be digging in the ground for truffles and.
That's right.
Nuclear winter.
So, well, how about the cat lady? Is that still an option?
Oh no! Obviously, I've got Optus working. We've got the cat lady, and the phone. We have got 3 options.
Yes,
but
right.
they're okay for normal work, but.
But not if you're hosting the streaming.
For streaming, that's the main problem. If I didn't worry about this, it didn't have the stream, I wouldn't be so worried. Although it's a pain to put a YouTube up in 30 seconds makes it a big difference. You're much more likely to do it. Like that last one I sent you. Well, not the one on the FM. I just made it and just set it up all in a couple of hours. If you know you're going to be. Optus isn't stable enough to send anything anyhow over a few hours. So,
you've had that.
So basically, I'd have to take it somewhere who's got good internet, and
it's ridiculous.
It just takes the fun away.
It's just ridiculous. It's crazy stuff. I mean, hardly need to worry about that. Yeah, no. Look, I've just relish in being able to log my thing and put it up in a few minutes.
It's amazing the speed, isn't it? There's a zing, and.
That tunes to tube. It's 8 seconds or 10 seconds.
Oh, really?
It's because you're dealing with a fairly low bit rate anyhow. It's
this goes super fast.
It's so fast. It's great.
So you haven't had any more copyright problems?
I haven't, to be honest. No, nothing of substance. No, I mean, I do get the. I mean, they analyse everything that goes up, and you get a list.
Yeah, isn't that nice?
Of things, but there's no blocking or anything of consequence. No.
Now, interesting about all of this. I was looking at YouTube, and they've put up a lot of officially Beatles stuff, but they've gone back to the original, video clips, because they always looked crap. And I always wondered why, because the in the background you see people filming them on 35mm. They should look like 4K.
They should.
And now they're starting to put, on the official site, the old video clips up in 4K off 35mm. They look brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
How about that? That's interesting.
And they're all their strawberry fields forever, all those things, beautifully shot, innovative like you wouldn't believe, and not grainy 16mm now. They're 35mm 4K.
Wow. I'll have to have a look at that.
Looks fantastic.
That's amazing.
And anyway, I was looking at some of the comments and stuff, and apparently, talk about copyright, United Studios, one of those big copyright film companies in the USA, they had a big fire in their storerooms in 2008.
Oh, is this the Universal fire in 2009?
Yeah. And they said, don't worry, we've got backup copies, nothing of any interest has been lost and all sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Apparently, like, artists, bands and stuff have wanted to remaster their stuff. They've gone, but say, can we have our tapes? We want to do a big remastering. And for the last 10 years, they've said, we can't find them at the moment because the computer system's down, or we're rearranging stuff. We can't find them at the moment. Basically, everything's gone. The whole lot's gone.
They had a vault fire and they lost 500,000 reels of tape.
They've lost all the master discs Decca discs from 1930 to 1955, just gone.
I know. It's funny you mentioned this because I was reading about it yesterday. And that vault fire at Universal Studios, 3 acres
of archives.
Of archives were completely destroyed in 2009, but they didn't say much at the time.
Yep.
And now it's all sort of coming out, the extent of it. And as you say, it's pretty terrible. I mean, it's a major loss.
Right. Now that's interesting. We've got a message from Mr. Knock. He says, still no carrier on 160. Is that right? I was looking at 160 just before. It seemed to be there.
No carrier 160?
Yeah. Maybe it's gone off. Maybe something's happened. I'll look it on the thing. But yeah, apparently one of the things was that they you think they digitise everything, wouldn't you, as a backup digitise?
You would have thought so. You would have thought they would have made that a priority. But I think they've got safety copies and, you wouldn't think they keep all their master recordings in one venue.
You wouldn't think so. But I think, like, the multi-track copies, how many copies do you make of them? They're quite big. Maybe, I'll just dial this in, 1868, there we are.
I'm monitoring off the SDR and I can still see
it's still there. It's still there. If you're listening, it must be just bad conditions up to Beaufort, yeah. Anyway, apparently the trouble is
go on.
They were against digitising it because when you think about it, someone can just go in there, a worker or anyone who's got access, put it on an SD card and take it out, and they can have the whole 4-track workings of some band and do whatever they want, or 8-track or something.
Yeah.
So it's a bit hard to walk past the commissionaire with a stack of 2-inch tapes of some band's work. So they saved all that, the money they might have lost by piracy, but it's irrelevant because they've lost everything anyhow.
They've lost it all, yeah.
So, it's backward thinking, isn't it?
It is backwards.
Someone probably said, look, let's digitise it all and store it in under some mountain somewhere. Store it at Fort Knox, or we can't do that because then the material might be, but they've lost everything.
This happened many times. There's been numerous vault fires for film stock as well.
Yeah.
There was one very big fire, in the I think it was in the 50s or 60s, where basically most of a significant percentage of the world's silent films was lost.
It's terrible, isn't it?
Just in one fire.
Yeah.
So you hear these stories. It's pretty full on. But that Universal Vault fire is a very recent thing, and the losses are supposed to be unbelievable.
Yep.
I reckon 500,000 tapes at least. That's a lot of material.
Like you'd think, each one of those tapes possibly is worth generating a company tens of millions of dollars if it was reissued or something.
Yeah.
Yet they treat it like crap. And you think you'd make copies of the copies and digitise them and send them all around, put them in the cloud. You could even encode the digital so it can't be used by anybody.
Yeah. But I wonder if it'll change their thinking, their mindset, because it just shows how ephemeral these things are.
Yeah. If they had to put it out as freeware or whatever, people still would have bought the records and stuff, and there would have been more exposure to it, and they wouldn't have lost it, and they can make some money. But
So what's the relationship with Vivo and YouTube? I mean, that's like an official channel,
well, obviously it's
music videos and things, because they're all sort of fairly high production values, and they're the it looks like it's from the source, from BMG or Sony or whatever. They must sort of have their own footprint.
Yeah, no, VVO is very good. It's got good quality clips, and obviously they've done it legally with the copyright and everything, so they're not too worried. Someone's paying something, but obviously it's worthwhile because they're getting that stuff out, just keeping it in the public nature. And some of the clips get like 500 million hits.
Yes, they do. They get monstrous number of hits. It's interesting. Yeah. Well, so what's the thrust of the conversation on the Beatles thing about the high res uploads? I mean, obviously this is happening, and it's not being met with any resistance.
No. Well, I think it's a big problem to go back and find the original negatives. That's the problem. That you think they'd be put down and logged where they are, what company, that as long as the vault hasn't burnt down. But I think up until high res and 4K and HD, the standard television prints were fine. No one complained about them. But now they're looking very lacking compared to what people are used to.
About stature and about being up with the. I've noticed even the National Film and Sound Archive are putting things up in 4K now.
It has to be, It's the only.
So that's a great development. I mean, those local documentaries on Melbourne and the capital cities are fantastic. And, in high res, they look great.
Yeah. It's but some of the look to see, and I've seen other official artists have started putting up the original negatives of their video clips, and they look so much better.
Yeah. Especially if you've got a big screen.
Yeah. I mean, why shoot it in 35mm if it's never going to be seen in that?
Exactly. Yeah, it makes complete sense, and it's no longer the technical difficulties. The platform supports it fully, so why not? Yeah. No, it's interesting developments, but it's good. It is pleasing to see that we're moving forward in that area.
Yeah.
So wasn't there a big question mark about copyright in YouTube, and there was going to be all this sort of hedging and redefining things and blocks put on and stuff like that, wasn't there? Sort of going to be.
I think, look, there's still that, but obviously, see, the Beatles were they were never. Took a long time for them to get on the digital platform and on all these things. So I think there's a slight. Probably the execs now, the younger ones are getting in. They say, look, you've got to put it out there, otherwise it's just going to fade away and never be.
Well, it's lost to another generation. Then potentially the loss. And things move fast. They
move so fast. It's and I think they've got more chance of putting them out there and making some money on the side than not putting them out at all.
There is an expectation now, really, isn't there?
And that Beatles stuff. Look. For years after the Beatles, I'd heard the Beatles when I was sick of them because they're just everywhere and so popular and I couldn't give a stuff. But looking at the stuff, they were so innovative, and it was just like, and then to see the clips like they were shot yesterday, you think, well, this just adds a whole new dimension.
Yeah, that's great. No, it'd be good to see them. Most interesting.
And like Sgt. Pepper's, I remember when that came out.
Yeah.
And, I was used to a record that was divided into tracks on each side, and they had tracks of basically, love songs, basically.
Yes, that's right. That was the typical thing.
I remember at high school, someone brought in a copy of Sgt. Pepper's, and we played it in the back of the hall on the Australian Sound record player.
On the radiogram.
Yes. I'd love to get one of those if they turned up with the HRSA.
Yes, one should turn up.
And you could
saw one earlier today on the roadside collection. I was offered it by the owner.
An Australian Sound?
Unfortunately. It was an old HMV radiogram.
Oh, we're talking about Australian Sound. It's the high school ones.
The high school ones.
Yeah.
Oh, right, sorry. I tuned out.
And it had a 4-inch speaker in the front, but you could plug in with a 2-prong plug. The American 110-volt plug. You could plug in the triangular speaker thing, the big boom box speaker.
Yes.
And we listened to Sgt. Pepper's.
Yep.
And I thought, what the hell is this? And the songs didn't finish, they merged into another one. And then A Day in the Life, I listened to that, and I thought, I've never had drugs, but I'm on a trip. This is incredible. And the way the music goes, spirals up to this crescendo, then drops out.
It's a sonic experience.
Got up, got out of bed, put the comb across my head. I thought, this is just, I've never heard anything like this before.
Yeah. What they were trailblazers. They were redefining popular music. Yeah,
and
progressive.
I mean, they had the creativity. George Martin did a lot of work, helped them along, but these guys are in their mid-20s.
The world was their oyster. They had all of the support they could have wanted. They were allowed to be progressive, and there was a whole generation who wanted something that new, refreshing, more rhapsodic, less formulaic. When you think of, they went from "She Loves Me, Yeah, Yeah, Yeah" to the sort of
in about 4 years,
sort of meandering song, Sgt. Pepper.
It was just amazing. And the other thing I like to talk about, young people and stuff. They wrote their songs. They were in their 20s. They're so, I mean, their idea of the world, how they conceptualised it, and like, it makes you wonder, if people that age have got that grip on how life works and write songs about it. What's the point of people, old people, really? What do you learn extra after about 25?
This is it. I mean, they have the spirit. They have my thoughts are about seeing young people at work. We sort of become gradually stultified as we get older. We become streamlined into our, and we lose that sort of sense of openness to things. And kids are innately creative.
Oh, they are.
It's in the DNA, and basically we just sort of tragically we sort of expunge them of it.
I
the
think
point where we just become, as you say, just sort of drones, really.
We're drones. And after the people after 30 are just there really to support the young people in their little 5-year creative bit.
But look, people always have the potential to be creative as well. It's a lot of it's a mindset thing.
Oh, it is.
And,
I agree.
And you got to. I always like being around people who are curious and interested and have a that sort of indomitable, youthful spirit and wistful way of looking at things rather than sort of dogged mainstream. There are certain flexible mindset things that you can, childlike visions of the world that you can sort of uphold, I suppose.
I've been listening. Well, about the only mainstream station I listen to is I listen to Syn FM.
Oh, good.
Now, I listened to a bit when Amanda was on, and the programs before and after were quite good. And the music is just, like, it's not the same old stuff I've heard a million times. And it's like you get kicked out when you're 26. That's the oldest you can be on. So it's music for and by old people. They have... like the presenter's always young. They have live people come into the studio and play their music.
That's fantastic.
And to me, it's so invigorating, and you're not hearing the same old crap from Fox FM or whatever, just the same old...
It's a fantastic institution. Oh, it's great. I was very impressed with that program I heard with Amanda. I did listen that day a few weeks back. But I think, it is progressive. It's the youth talking and creating their own, having agency of what they do. And
then they talk about general subjects and think, these are kids, in around 20. Why do you need, someone 65, a John Fane or whatever? These kids know more about the world than some old fuddy-duddy.
Well, they're far more in touch with the pulse of things and the pace and the way that the interactions. And I think that a lot of older people just can't. Well, I can't keep up. You
can't. But you try.
It's so much, and I forever marvel at just how quick and fluent young people are at sort of navigating that space. They just do it so seamlessly, and they're really, there's a change. Our brains are being rewired.
They are.
The old guard is really just becoming more and more ossified and fossilised and stuff. It's quite obvious, really.
You always have your old, what you like doing and the way your brain's wired, but you have to change. Like when we're in Canberra, as I said, I used Google Maps for driving, about 10 years ago. I hated it, never worked properly. I thought, I hate that. I hate using a phone for navigating. I'll use the Melloways, and we got lost. I just put the thing on, it works perfectly. I had to learn to use it. And I prefer not to use it, but I'm using it, and I've joined the modern world. That's how people get around now.
Yeah, they do.
And it was like a tipping point.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
I mean, that's good. I mean, well, because it means that you can experience your environment in a different way. You're not forever sort of stuck in your old mindset of how you did things. Rather, it's a different system. I find it very effective. I use it all the time.
It's really
I
good.
don't have to worry. I just I mean, working out directions is a nuisance. I'd rather just sort of be aware of my surroundings and not have to stuff around.
Yeah.
Thinking ahead, 10 streets ahead. Oh shit! Is this the one I turn down, or is this where I go, or is this how I rather something else does that for me. I look forward to having a driverless car where I can kick back and just sort
that's right. Yes.
It's quite bad. I've become completely dependent on Google Maps, and it's funny because Google gets all of your data and it sort of plots.
I know. So this is why I was against
tailors
it.
everything to you, so it knows all the drains that I've been to. It'd be quite funny if
it's following you. There are ways of sort of tangling yourself from it a bit.
That's true.
Yeah.
But it does take you've got to be a bit determined.
Yeah. See, it's like when we were in Canberra, talking to some of these old, techos from the 60s. A lot of them are really switched on. And I thought, well, and they're 70, 80 or whatever. I thought, they're better with phones and things than I am. I thought, well, you've got you're either a fuddy-duddy or you move on with the flow. You can still enjoy your old stuff and come on 160 and crap like that. But you have to acknowledge the new world. Otherwise, things move so fast, even in 5 years, that
you miss out on a lot of the frontier thinking and the attitudes and the mind. I think it's very important to be up front. Yeah.
So we can think we're all hip. We're not really, but still.
We're not hip. And you can't pretend. This is the thing I've learned as being a teacher. You can't pretend you're cool or hip or you're part of it. You just don't even try.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you can be, you can have a very open, comfortable dialogue with young people and just be yourself and be open to without judging all the time.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Grumpy old men thing.
We've grown up with this sort of attitude of grumpy old people judging younger generation.
You can't do that.
It's absolutely. I mean, it's a non-starter. By doing that, you're already limiting possibilities. You're limiting, creative interactions. You're limiting your understanding of, the way that people think and the types of decisions they make. And who are for us to judge?
You're a child of your upbringing and what values were around.
Well, that's right. Unless you challenge them and sort of, make a conscious decision not to follow that traditional line, and otherwise you really are dead in the water.
You just
in a sense.
Yeah, you're really just you're not part of society anymore.
No, not really. You're marginalised. You become sort of you put yourself into a box. in a sense.
What do you think about this? Andrew? Do you think we're just too old to even appreciate it?
No, not at all. I get it completely. I just don't know where I fit into the whole scheme of things. Because I don't know. I feel like I'm just being funneled into a box. All my creative stuff, it's all gone out the window.
Because you're working.
Sorry, I go to the 9 to 5 job and I feel completely exhausted afterwards. I wanted to start a new band.
I know.
Can't do that because I just don't have time to practice my instrument or get everybody together to have a rehearsal or whatever. It's awful.
Yeah, it is. Look, killer, isn't it? Work is an impediment. I know. I don't know how Steve does it. Does all his stuff and family and works at the same time, but you come home, you want to do the stuff you want to do, and it's 2, 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. You think, well, I've got to do this. I'm not going to just live my work, and you have 1 hour sleep, go to work, you're stuffed, and then you come back home. It's just a cycle, and you never finish things off. And you think, I could be doing this, I could be doing that. I can't because I've got to sit and do some boring thing at work. Yeah, it's terrible. I think it's work is there to suppress people's creativity, and you go in
I
a little.
think it can
little box.
profoundly, unless you do really mundane work where you can sort of be in your own headspace.
Yeah.
So, sometimes I think it'd be good to do some sort of simple manual labour so you could just be in your own head thinking thoughts without having to...
That's what I thought. I hoped that this job was going to be like that, but the problem is you have to be constantly on guard. I thought that I was just going to be loading samples into a machine and extracting soil and stuff, but no, it's actually, there's quite a large... there's a large margin for error, unfortunately, when you're measuring parts per trillion of things.
Oh, shit. Full on. Yeah, I wish you well navigating that. It is tricky.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, it's a really hard one too, especially if you're a creative person, and you obviously are. You've got your band, and you've got your music interests, and your drain interests, and all sorts of history interests and things. And you've got to find space for it, otherwise you dry up.
Well, I thought that it'd be good to, if I could find a part-time position, that'd be quite fun. But I thought after I finished my PhD, I was just planning to sort of bum around and do nothing for a while. I'd even gone to the first sort of Centrelink meeting. But yes, but I need some kind of cash flow.
See, you could have been a
hippie. Tricky one. You've got to live as well. And I back in my late 20s, had this. Both Kate and I had a bit of an existential crisis of sorts, and we took 2.5 years off. We just basically cut all our work, and then travelled and mainly walked for 2.5 years, and it doesn't cost you anything. It doesn't cost anything to walk. So you just planned all these trips, and that was really good because it sort of decoupled things a bit, and you can stand back and you can objectify. And I remember, at times on those walks, it was a huge conflict inside because you sort of feel, oh shit, I should be contributing, I should be in this, the life zone, but look, at the end of the day, I think it was probably the most important thing I've ever done, really.
Oh, yeah, I think so. And I'd see people, in the 60s, you could be a hippie. It was quite socially acceptable to do that. Go and live in Cairns or somewhere. But, I don't know. Look, part-time work is a good option. I don't mind that. Depends what, a lot of people get financial stuck, and they've got to get money and all this sort of stuff, and they're stuck in that loop, and they've got to, it's a terrible thing. Look, I must admit, since I left full-time work in 2001, I've basically, it has been, I must admit, it's been a dream run. I can do what I like, I can play around here. Every day is a holiday, and every day I wake up and think, thank God I'm not working. And even when I was doing part-time work for the ABC, they ring up. I felt compelled, like I felt some sort of, they need someone today, maybe I'll go in.
You must have feared for that phone call.
Yeah, but I didn't have to, if I wanted to go walking, I could just say I'm not available that week. It was a great feeling that they called me, I wasn't calling them. And, it was just, I remember the day when I left full-time, it was just like being freed from a prison. It was amazing. It was just, I was on a high for about 6 months later. It was just incredible.
Yeah, that's great. It's a wonderful thing. I think a lot of people feel caught in that sort of financial impasse of trying to sort of establish securities and stuff like that too. It's a tricky one.
Yeah.
So, I can acknowledge that. I think it's great. I admire what you've done. I think it's really good. I think being, you only live once. You're only here for a flash.
Well, you do.
You might as well do things that are meaningful for yourself.
Yeah. And wealth is worthless in itself. You've got to be, do something meaningful in your life. But, people stuck in the traffic, 2 hours a day to and from work and all that, I couldn't stand that, what I like, out in the outback, you tune into 3LO and hiss, in the morning, and they say, here's the traffic report, the Monash freeway's jammed up and they're 5 hours to get up Sydney Road, and think...
And you're on the Lyn Bedell highway.
Yes, I think, isn't this great? All these people, they don't know what real work is like.
Yes, that's right.
It was like... It's another people just in a loop, their little ticky-tacky boxes, come home to that.
That's it. It's a very poignant theme. God, it is. But, look, it's a very personal thing, navigating that space, and it's a tricky one. But or if you can find work where you've got meaningful relationships. I mean, the only thing thing that keeps me working is I really enjoy the kids I work with. I think they're fantastic kids. So it's compelling from that point of view, but at the same time it's exhausting too. So.
If it was something you didn't like, it would be just horrific, wouldn't it?
Oh, it'd be horrible. I mean, just be terrible. You feel like you're living you're completely stultified.
They're basically imprisoned for 8 hours a day.
Yeah,
and they're doing stuff they don't want. Now, Andrew, if you want a job where you don't have to think and you can be on a different plane while you're doing the work, get a job as an NBN installer. Just wander in and just say,
look at
you don't even have to do a good job.
We'll just use the Optus cable, the existing Optus cable.
That's right. Do the easiest thing for yourself. And
you get $60 for half a day.
Yeah, that's right.
I can drive around in a little white van and just pull over and jump into all the Telstra pits I want. And
that's right. You might get keys to the pits. Key to the underground telecommunications tunnels.
That's right. Yes, you'd certainly be privy to all of the the subculture there.
Now, a bit of a job that was similar to that tell me on your own was working at the broadcast house as a network operator. You sit in a booth, and you might have to panel up the breakfast show or something, but most of the time you're sitting in front of one of those panels with a VU meter, and you cross the news every hour, and you basically do bugger all.
Right.
And when Mr. Marks was there, he's got some slides, and he just built computers. He's got all he's got all this stuff, test gear, and he just set building computers. What were they, Commodores or something?
Fantastic.
And I remember people read books. People did whole, university courses online, not online, but by remote there.
Yes.
And as long as you remember to push the button every hour, and at the end of the night play the national anthem and stuff, you're fine, And
so that's that position with all the meters in the switch room, is it?
No, the switch room. Well, they could do that there too, but this is in the individual. So they had someone sitting at the three networks, the local radio, the national radio, what's now Radio National, and the regionals. They had someone sitting in a booth.
Yeah.
And if it was cricket or Parliament, you did nothing. Of course, you just crossed to Sydney and sat in the booth.
And just go and get drunk.
Yeah, but you get drunk. And you
have a frothy coffee.
Frothy coffee, and you could take. When I joined, they said, "You better go down to Foy's and buy a pocket radio so you can wander around the city and monitor the program." And thought that's a good idea. A bit hard to run back if something goes wrong. So it was a blood's job. And I remember Jonesy from Peter Evans fame. He said, it's a good job, but I don't think it's really good for young people because it's not very progressive. You don't do much, It's just really a job for people on the way out and just want to sit there and basically retire. But it's like he said, it's like a men's club. You come in here, you just sit in the chair and you do stuff, and you walk down, sit in the tea room and lounge chair, and it's so it was really a bit like that.
Yeah, it sounds excellent.
Because often
I like a job like that. That'd be all right. You can be I
don't think it exists anymore. And I remember that the branch went to get a job there.
Okay.
And because I'd told him all about it, and they said, Mr. Sanderson, what do you why do you want to work here? He said, I'm studying and I've got projects to do, and I heard that it's a good job to you've got plenty of spare time to do all this work.
Oh, no.
And they said, look, we'll don't call us, we'll call you.
We'll call you.
So maybe you took it too literally.
Yeah, you probably did take it just a bit too literally.
But there were times like if there was cricket, and I remember that the night, like the shift on radio, radio, what's called Radio 2 then, I think, because most of it was from Sydney, you'd do a couple of local programs, play a few tapes of the country hour if you're doing the morning. I think they had the breakfast show with Clive Starkey, had the country hour, that was a bit busy. The rest of the time was just network through till midnight. You just sat looking at a VU meter. Yep. And it got pretty boring if you didn't have stuff to do. You had to have projects.
Yeah.
And I built the branch limiter and I patched that in, so I didn't even need to look at the VU meter because I didn't have any Audimaxes or anything. And
that's excellent.
So It was really, but I thought, it's not, you weren't progressing anywhere. You had to really go to a different area to progress somewhere. But it's, those sort of jobs, it was perfect.
Yeah, it sounds excellent.
Perfect for people who want to just do their own thing and get paid for it. And sit in a nice, quiet, air-conditioned booth. I mean...
Yeah, that would be it. That would be excellent. I had no trouble surviving in a job like that. There's been lots of books to read, projects to do. Yeah. So Mr. Marks, okay, he had that position for a while.
Yeah, he I think when I left, he started there very soon after I did.
It sounds like a the job to edge yourself into. If you're a hobbyist, it would be perfect.
Oh yeah, a lot of people did start off in that as a network operator, as they call them. And you basically had the network going through your little desk. So it wasn't that complex a job. It was, it's designed back in the 1950s when everyone had dedicated their work, what they had to do, and
everything was very demarked.
And if the workload went down or they didn't change it until much later.
So what was the job in the switch room? The fellow with the where he had two telephones, one in each ear. So that would have been intense at times.
It could be at times. Well, like setting up the sporting thing, you had to patch all the things in. You're always testing lines or putting lines through. That was quite a skillful. It could be a busy job. It had down times as well, but it. Basically, you were responsible. You had to monitor all the stuff, and you'd pre-set up the switching on that.
So you get your brief, you'd set up the switching, have it all ready to go, and then would you be the one who makes the connection?
What would happen? You'd set up the switching. What studios are meant to transfer to what transmitters or lines at a certain time. You'd extend that control to the network operator, and at the certain time, they'd push a button, because when that extended, all the little lights there, at 3LO, 3AR, 2CO, all these would come on to say what the next. They would be in red, and they'd be in green, and the ones you're on air at the moment will be on red.
Okay.
And the bottom ones will be on green. So when you press the button, the uni-selectors would whiz around, and the new configuration would happen.
I see.
So the network operator had it because if there was a clash of, say, if one program hadn't finished and you had to change the network and go to another program, instead of what they do now, just chop on the time in the middle of a sentence, what you'd do, you'd have to be a little bit creative. You'd wait for the sentence to finish. You'd fade that down, wait for the next program you're meant to go to, where there's within 1 or 2 seconds, a natural pause, then hit the button, cross over, so it wasn't so bad.
So it sounds seamless, yes. Yes, it's pretty basic now, isn't it? You just cut them up.
Which is terrible. If you did that then, you'd be really in big trouble.
Yes.
And the switch room person was meant to monitor the switches in case you forgot. Then he at any time could override and switch it across.
I see. So it's a secondary sort of...
yes, that's right.
Okay, so what happened with Graham Kennedy that time?
Well, what happened, I think I was too involved looking at being part of the Kennedy show or whatever. And the news booth, which was in the studio next door, had to go down via the switch room and program room and back up again, probably via Sydney and Perth as well. But and you're meant to test the news booth, like the guy'd ring up and you'd push the preset, the pre-listen button on the news booth, and you would he'd say a few words. He'd say, "This is a testicle." And I thought, that's a terrible thing to say. I thought, that's obscene. And anyway...
The gay BC.
So then you'd know it's right. So when he came in, when the news time, you'd flick the key and it'd be okay. After the gong, you'd push the button. And I think in this time I mustn't have done the test and it wasn't patched through or something.
Right.
And what you...
Very good radio.
And what you do usually... Even after you'd done the test, like 30 seconds before, you'd wind up the pre-listen, if you could hear the guy in the studio breathing or noises or whatever, you knew it was patched in. And obviously didn't do that. Put up the fader, and it wasn't. There was no connection. So that's what. Then I panicked, put Sydney up, and that wasn't right. So yeah, it was.
Oh, it's funny. It's a great bit. Have you heard that, Andrew? Have you heard that snippet with Graham Kennedy?
Was that the one where they've lost the news?
That's right.
Yeah.
And
yes, I've heard that. That's fantastic.
that's right. And they say, and Graham Kennedy, he was very good.
Yes.
If you switch on my mic, Richard, I'll be able to say something. And he said, "Oh well, I've lost the news. It's all of one, across the corridor." Yeah. And he said, "A lot of flowers in the studio. They were from Mary Adams." And he says, "Mary Adams gets more flowers than Tobin Brothers." And it was great.
Brilliant. It's perfect comedy. Yeah, such timing. It's amazing.
Yeah,
that's amazing. It's great. Yeah, that would have been good. And Peter Evans, he would have been good to work with.
Well, he was a bit of a. He didn't like some people.
He was a bit of a grumpy old man.
Yeah, he certainly was. He didn't move with the times. He was still back. Well, he used to speak about the war times and going up the Amazon and stuff. When he was 15, like he hadn't moved with the times.
He's probably be 50.
He died at 56. He died.
God,
when he was 56. He was 56 and he sounded like 90, 106.
He sounded like a 90-year-old, like an old geriatric.
Yep.
God.
Yeah.
But he had such great timing. I used to love listening to the way he sort of just master.
He was a total master. Although I haven't listened to his stuff for a while. When you do, you think it's getting pretty dated.
Yeah, well, it's a very different pace to radio now.
It is. But look, he was he's one of a kind, and he'd never be replaced. And he can't,
just a very strong personality.
Yeah, that's right. And he hated modern music. He hated anything modern. He refused to listen to FM. He didn't he was really back in the 50s.
Yeah.
And he was probably hip then, but he never moved on.
Yeah, that's right.
But see, that was part of his persona. People listened to him because he was a grumpy old man.
They did. They used to like that. I know my folks used to like that. They used to. It sort of met people's morning grumpy expectations, I think.
That's right.
Yes. You wake up grumpy and hear the grumpy old man to take a bit of the grumpiness out of you.
And so much of it was talking about the domestic situation at Broadcast House.
Right.
He'd be talking about, the operators, the managers, the technicians. Right. It was almost like and the jokes were in, and I'd be, listening. I'd think, yeah, that's bloody funny. I think, well, it's only funny because I know the people personally, It would mean nothing.
It was all sort of people, that familiarity, is that sort of casual familiarity with your environment. I think people like that, even if they didn't know the people.
I think the listeners felt they were part of the family because they were talked about as a family.
Yeah, exactly.
And all their faults and whatever.
Yeah.
So that was the whole thing. Yeah.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
On I guess a bit of a similar note, I've been rewatching recently the videos that you put up of Clive Robinson.
Oh yes,
including the little docu feature of him at what was it, two
UE, I think, 2 something, yeah.
Yeah.
No, he was very good.
A bit of a unique personality. I think I can't imagine anyone like that getting on the air now. Maybe there are people like that.
He was hard to get along with. Apparently, I never met the man personally, but he. It was interesting. One night, the Cumes came round to my place at Munster Avenue, and we were burning TVs. That night, that's on that film where we bashed the TV set up and everything.
Oh right, yes.
And we were burning things and bashing stuff, and about 5 o'clock. We turned on the radio and listened to Clive Robinson. Right. And anyway, we rang him up and said, we're down here and we've been burning stuff up, and he was relaying all our what we'd been.
Did you record that?
No, I didn't. You know how some things happen, you'd never get around to recording it.
That would be great to have a document, because he would have relished it.
Oh, he would have, yes.
He was permanently bored with institutions, the whole institutional way of thinking. He was sort of transcended it a bit, really.
Yeah. No, he was brilliant, and I think he was popular in Sydney as the same as Evans. And I think
he was quite subversive, and you really didn't know what he was going to say next.
No, he didn't. They wouldn't let him on now.
Quite sort of double entendres and some pretty sordid sort of subtexts.
He does. Yeah, it would have gone over a lot of people's heads.
I think it would have, but I thought he's genius.
And even now, I listen to him, and I've got tapes of him and Evans, and you think, I didn't get that before, but yeah, that's quite, would have gone over a lot of people's heads. But
I dare say they would have, yeah.
I'll say it again, you've heard it, but probably one of the listeners mightn't have. But one night Evans' car broke down, he couldn't get in the morning for an hour or something, and they just switched to Clive Robinson on the line. They said, you're on Melbourne now. And he just spent the whole time rubbishing Evans and taking Evans' mannerisms off and doing all these Evans things.
Fantastic. It was, I'd love to hear that. Most excellent. Clive Robinson, he's still around, isn't he?
He's still around, yeah. I think he's fat, bitter and twisted, he's gone a bit...
Yeah, I think he's sort of got a bit of a chip.
I think he was had some sort of psychological problem. But he's still going. But the fact that, Evans died when he was a young man, really... So, because he had a terrible lifestyle. And when his wife left him, he just... I've got that article from the TV scene or whatever. He just said he lived on cream buns and... and they tested his blood was 90% sugar, and and then he sort of
he probably didn't look after himself.
I didn't. Yeah, that's right. And it's amazing. I've got that clip up on the 50th anniversary of 3LO, the little party they had in the foyer of 3LO, and you've got Bill Ackfield, Richard Coombe, Michael Cole, all these people I used to listen to in the 60s and 70s. And I think it's amazing to see them there. And it's had about 5 hits. Obviously it means something to me. It doesn't mean it's too old.
Room.
Yeah.
That's right. That's good. I'll have to look at that.
Yeah, it's an amazing thing. And Bill Ackfield is saying he was born apparently a few months after 3LO started.
Gosh.
So it means he must have been almost 50 when that happened, because he got killed in a car accident not long after.
He car crashed, didn't he?
That's right.
Long after that time. Gosh.
And everyone's very up. He was a very popular man, personally very popular.
Yes.
With his workmates and everything. And people, generally, really upset.
Oh, it would have been a shock, a terrible shock. Yeah, I can only imagine. I mean, when a celebrity dies like that, it profoundly affects people.
Yeah.
Yeah, gosh. No, it's great. It's good to hear these tales of the ABC.
Yeah, look, it is interesting. The way that the system worked. I mean, I was only there for a few years, but there was something about it. It was a bit because it was so institutionalised, so bureaucratic. It had all that varnished wood. As soon as you went in, it had this feeling, the smell, this look of something that was another world. It's sort of it was like a bit like walking the BBC broadcast house in 1930 or something. It would have been a similar sort of atmosphere.
Yes.
And you had it's just you had the show band or orchestras practicing in Studio 320 and that music echoing up the hallway, and it sort of had this creative feel about it.
I can imagine. Look, it would have been great. I only went in there a couple of times, but as a kid, I never forget the experience of walking in that place. It just had something that foreboding, larger than life, institutionalised.
Yes, that's right.
Feel about it. It would have been great to work there.
Yeah. It's a pity I've been banned from the broadcast house page, because I've put offensive material up there.
Oh yes, that's a shame.
I'd probably have a lot to offer, but I'm not welcome.
Well, someone
obviously.
also put up another page at some other point, and there'll be a chance to express that. But Yeah, it's one person's domain, isn't it, really?
That's right, and he was... he was a bit of a funny chap, even when he wasn't geriatric. Yeah, so look, it's interesting reminiscences, and it was sort of like... interesting thing is, I was an ABC fan, listening to the ABC and all this stuff before it went bad, but and then to actually get a job in the building where all these people that I used to listen to were on air, and then to sit in the booth and have control of the radio station that I used to listen to. I could turn it up or down, or turn it off, or do something wrong.
Yeah, well, it's incredible.
It was.
Extraordinary, think of it.
And, you'd nod off to sleep or something, and you'd sort of wake up and half saying, I'm the radio, I'm in charge of it. And Mr. Beck said this, the old Mr. Beck told me when he first started working at 3MP, he'd have a similar feeling. He'd all of a sudden think he'd spent his life being a radio fan and liking radio and listening to it and stuff, and all of a sudden he'd get this sensation that he is now the radio, what he was, he
personifies it, literally.
He was actually the person doing it, not just a partaker now.
Yes. He's the facilitator now.
That's right. So I think now he's getting a lot of gigs on doing the news. He must have getting that feeling again.
Yeah, he probably is.
He's probably listening too.
It's fascinating, isn't it? Just that sort of sense of what is the institution, what is the face of what is it, and and that being having that responsibility must be an incredible feeling.
Because he when he was on a crossband, and he was walking down Glen Huntly Road, and he saw Jeff Raymond walking up, who was the newsreader in the 1970s.
Yeah, I remember Jeff Raymond.
And he said he was walking in his suit, he had his makeup on, his hair done, he was larger than life, and he saw Jeff Raymond and thought, this is, incredible. He probably almost went down, on his knees, because here is this personality had come out of the studio, walking up a street, actually mingling with normal people. He thought, this is just amazing. And then he's Jeff Raymond now. It's just incredible, isn't it?
Yeah, he's doing exactly the same thing now. He's got the same position. He's been amazing.
Yeah, it's quite funny because whenever he comes up on the TV when I'm at home, and I explain to my mum who he is and where my call sign comes from, and my mum's like, "Oh, that's nice. That's good to know."
Yeah.
It was quite interesting.
Yeah. So it all goes full circle.
It's a larger than life thing, isn't it? There's something particularly on radio, I think, because
you don't see them.
Full person, so your imagination fills in the gaps. And, so radio personalities can be larger than life, or they can assume, something that's really, deep in someone's imagination.
Whenever I've seen, when I used to listen to the radio, and you had real personalities, it's first time you saw a photograph in the newspaper or on TV, it ruined it. They were never the same afterwards. Because you had this disembodied voice, and it just became whatever you thought the personality was.
Exactly. Yeah. It's very evocative. It's deeply evocative because your mind fills in the gap.
Yeah, and it's just this weedy little guy or fat guy or just a boring-looking person. How can they be that when they're expressing all this, this persona through the mantle radio, but they're just a normal-looking person, or even less,
It's a good point. I never forget going to a waxworks once, and when you see these wax effigies of people, and they're so much smaller.
They usually are.
You imagine celebrities as being literally larger than life. They're like giants in your head.
Of course, that'd be the nearest thing to seeing them, and if they're passed on, that the nearest way of seeing what they would have looked like
is a wax effigy. But it's a bizarre thing. See, there's this little. You see one of Napoleon or someone who's had a major political figure, and they're this normal-sized person, the same height as you are, or smaller than you are.
Well, Bob Hawke was quite small.
Sorry?
Bob Hawke was quite small.
Right. Okay.
I remember there was some campaign in Coburg or whatever, and we're doing covering that, and I had a mic set up. and the lead was across the floor, and people walking all over it, and I was trying to pull up the mic cord to find where it was, and there's people, I was just pushing them away, and I pushed this guy away, and it was Bob Hawke. He was only a small little guy, and I pushed him right off the thing. Yes.
So you can say you pushed Bob Hawke.
That's right.
Him in his place.
And I had the Queen walk over me, which is... I have had... What happened was... I was working with this camera guy who was a real prick, and we'd gone on some more boring, mundane job. And this is the day when we had the camera with the big camera, big thick cable to the recorder you had to carry around. And so you had to be tied to this guy, and he was driving back and he saw all the commotion for the Queen. Oh, look, we'll get some shots of this. I said, oh, okay. It might be useful. So he got out, and then he was one of these guys he just walked through barricades. He didn't take any notice of regulations or people, police telling him off or whatever. He'd just do things until he was physically pulled out of the situation. So he got this good footage, but he was really,
You're really forceful about it.
Yeah, that's right. And if you had to work with him, then you got the same flack that he did. It's not... Anyway.
It'd be pretty unpleasant.
And he walks through the barricades, and there's all these people lined up along, I think, St Kilda Road or something. And he walks through the barricade, jumps through them, and there's all these people, just walks through the people, walks out into St Kilda Road, in the middle of St Kilda Road, and the Queen's coming along. And there's no other camera crews, no other photographers. Of course, they're not allowed to be there. He didn't have the card on the protocol thing saying who he was or anything like that.
What wonder he wasn't shot.
And I was tied to him with this thing.
Oh, it's just like an umbilical cord, isn't it? Yeah.
And anyway, he's rolling on the Queen, and the Queen walks right up. And where I was, the Queen actually walked. I had to be on the ground. The Queen walked over me, and Prince Philip and all these people walked over me. And then as soon as that happened, I got grabbed, I got pulled, thrown off the road, ripped the cord out, thrown into the crowd by a security person, and the camera guys are sitting there going, oh, where have you gone? The bloody cables, and he had to go at me because the cable's broken, and I ruined his shot because the camera got jerked when he was filming the Queen, and I got pulled out because... And he just oblivious to it. I said, do you know what you've done? He said, that was the Queen. And you've broken every protocol. And I've seen the knickers of the Queen because, this is just a terrible situation.
You get tasered or shot these days.
You would. You probably wouldn't be allowed to do it now. But I think it's just because he was so brazen, he just jumped out.
And sort of walked out. And you're forced to do the same. Gosh, well, not many people can say they've been walked over.
I've been walked over by the Queen.
Yeah, I hope she didn't have dog shit on her.
No, I hope not. But there were situations with similar people where you work with them. If they weren't the newer systems, say, okay, well, you're on your own on this one because it's against all the regulations and protocol.
Yeah.
You can.
So you're able to make that call, protect yourself.
Yeah.
This guy, you could have been really vulnerable then.
Well, I could have been. Another time, this guy wanted to. As a bridge, that bridge in the university, there's a footbridge across Elizabeth Street.
Oh, yes, I know that, yeah.
And he wanted to drop watermelon off the bridge and film it, but he couldn't get a good enough shot just over it. He wanted to step on the handrail of the bridge.
Right.
And stand up and film it from there. And he said, oh, can you hold my legs while I do this? I said, no, because if you fall, I'm not going to be able to stop you. Then I've basically, you're killed, but I'm going to be involved. Yeah. And I said, I'm not doing it. If you want to do it, you stand up on your own. I'm going away, And I've made this quite clear. I'm not having anything to do with this. And he was really shitty. That I wouldn't help him do this shot.
That's terrible.
And some of them were real pricks.
Yeah, I can only imagine.
They get so involved in the creativity. And look, I've done it myself because I've done both jobs. You can be a real prick to the people you're working with.
Well, if you're on a mission to capture something and you've really got an imagination for it, I can see. I know how it is to be sort of possessed by a thought or by something you need to pursue.
Yeah.
And, against all odds, I suppose that's what happens.
And people do really dangerous things.
And they take terrible risks. Yeah.
For a shot that's on the news for 20 seconds. And what do you get for it? Nothing. It's
not happening a lot in war zones.
The war people are like that. Yeah,
they must have crazy risks, and quite often they get sniped.
It's all to do with their ego.
Yeah, it is. It's an ego thing, and it's an adrenaline thing, and there's that sort of thrill of the chase. There's a
If you're is single and like on a single person, crew or a photographer or whatever, you only got yourself to be shot or whatever. But when there's other people involved, you really have to think about them because they may not have family or anything. They may be single. It may be maybe that job is the main thing in their life they're interested in, climbing up the ladder.
And they're prepared to take the risks.
Yep.
But when it involves somebody else, it's hugely problematic. They may not feel the same way.
Yeah, exactly. And you don't get paid any more, or what's the kudos of getting a big? It only means in his little group, he's elevated. No, the public couldn't give a.
No, they would
shit. That's a good shot. They don't see that would have been really dangerous to get or whatever. I mean, they don't care.
No.
And it's an interesting environment.
Yeah, you see a lot of risk taking, I'm sure, because it's that thrill of capturing the right impression of an event or something that sort of value adds to it. And you'd always be looking in view of how's the best way I can capture this? What's the best 5 seconds I can make out of the situation?
I think there's a compromise of not breaking too many laws or other people, trying to get shots as well. You don't deliberately upset their thing either. There's a protocol on that, but some people don't care. They'll just stand in front of the other people and get their good shot, stuff it up for everybody else. And I would feel terrible. I've done it accidentally, and you feel terrible. These guys think, stuff you, I've got the shot, I've got the accolades, my company's going to get the shots, you haven't. That's the way they think. It's incredible.
Yeah, they sort of. I wonder too about now when they're chasing, those doorstop things and politicians or big events and celebrities. When and there's that rush to the front to be the cameraman who's right in line with the person being interviewed, or that must be a sort of really competitive edge as well.
It is. I think. Look, I think general news isn't that bad. There's a bit of a protocol in Australia for political stuff.